All right, we're live. How's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of Excuses with your favorite show hosts, Aristill.
Bernarian.
And Volatel, and we're coming to you live from Tuliolal this time. Bring you guys
Yep.
gaming news and commentary for the week.
Yes.
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 We're broadcasting live from the Taco Bell. Dawntrail's out.
Yeah, and I expect that since that happened, most of the gaming population has done little else unless they are embroiled in Elden Ring, in which they are doing little else than that. But if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com. You can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which you can get to by clicking on the link that Ari has repaired in the show description underneath the show archive on YouTube.
Yep, I had to fix it again because the old one I did not set an expiration date, but it expired anyway. I had a passing thought when I opened up the start go live section of YouTube, and it's like, I wonder if that Discord link. Yep, it's broken.
Yeah. It worked perfectly fine for years, and then all of a sudden it just starts breaking once a month now. I don't know what changed.
No, I fixed it to be permanent when I took over the rig again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and my mic is not in the correct location.
Discord is weird at the best of times.
Yeah, Discord has been having a few shoes lately, and that it's trying to help more, and this is causing problems.
It always causes problems when machines try and help.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, we will save the Final Fantasy talk for after the weeks, because I imagine that's going to eat up most of the content section. Knock your tacos off the table. What's wrong with you?
I did maybe have just smacked some tacos.
But, yeah. So, we'll go through our weeks as normal until then, and I'll talk a bit about Elden Ring when we get to mine, and you can sparkle while we do that. So, Sparkly Lion Man, start your week.
My week hasn't really been a whole lot because, yeah, you're stuck on the work hell march, and a lot of other stuff is starting to actually kick off around here. So, yay, because event season. Which means everything's on fire, and very soon there's going to be drunk cowboys coming out of the walls.
Event season seems to be more or less 11 and a half months of your year.
Yes and no. Like, things tend to be spread out fairly evenly over the year, except for the winter months, in which case there is a congealing of such events. So yeah, it's been busy times.
You have winter months?
Well, we have winter week.
Yeah, like we have an area in the U.S. that's the desert like area of the world, Fern. We call it Death Valley.
Yes.
And the only people dumb enough to put something there were the people in Vegas.
I mean, yes.
It's an area of microbiological interest too, because they have a lot of fungi in that area that are quite dangerous to humans, that are very good at colonizing the human body and very difficult to get out once they get in.
Charming. So that's how the zombie apocalypse starts.
Basically, yeah. Like, it can live in the dust if you're unlucky and you get a lungful of spores, it's pretty much over for you.
Okay, if I'm ever in Nevada, don't eat the dirt.
Just don't wander around barefoot in the desert or touch anything.
Ugh.
Don't go hug the cactuses or play in the grass patches to chase a jackalope.
Yeah, so largely we've got a very similar climate to that, except we don't have mesas.
But yeah, the point
That's
is,
bad.
it's too dang hot there for anybody except the crazy gamblers to build a city. But you guys,
Yes, rock is a mesa.
but you live in one like a normal person in an area
it's because there's
that
a
the rest of the world.
ridiculous amount of wealth buried in the dirt.
Yeah, it's like you. So I don't know if you have winter months there.
No, we have winter week. We have 1 week where the temperature drops down into the single digits overnight.
Yeah, like me and
That
Vol
week was
live
last
in.
week.
We live in warm places, but where you live is ridiculous.
Hot.
Well, this year it's been this location I'm in has been temperate. like the entire year. The temperature hasn't changed. Like it hasn't gotten much colder than -2 all winter, and it hasn't. It really didn't get very warm either. Like the warmest it was about 37, 38 degrees, which is pretty mediocre for Christchurch summer. And 99.9% of the rest of the days, it's just been 20 plus or -5 degrees.
That sounds
Like
incredibly pleasant.
there's no temperature change throughout the year. Like it's marginally wetter in winter, and that's about the only difference. I don't know what's happened to the climate here. It's just completely stabilized into a permanent stasis.
Yeah. I mean, climate stability. I'll take it.
No, it's climate change.
Nah,
It
that's kind of the
changes by
opposite of what's
stopping
happening.
changing.
My chair is too small for this emote to actually work. So, yeah. I don't know. It's been weird. We actually had a decent wet season this year as well. So, for the first time in years, we might be looking at the end of our 20-year drought. So, there's that.
I hope that your fellow countrymen are pleased that you've just jinxed it for them.
We've been jinxing it for ourselves for, 20 years. So, anyway, as far as gaming and nerdery this week, not much. Mostly it's been poking around in Star Rail and doing the museum event, which is kind of a no-brain thing you can just do.
Well, I mean,
there's
like
a
I said
few-
last time, it's about
Mm.
getting to know Billabong, getting to know Jirilla 6 as a place.
Yep, meeting the people. The big surprise twist at the end as to who the museum thief is like everyone saw that coming from a mile off. Because just walk in, you even get the option to say, "Oh, it's just you."
Oh, it was Sampo, wasn't it?
It was Sampo.
Okay, of course. All you had to say is everybody expects it, and like, oh, it's Sampo.
It's Sampo. So
And
yeah,
yet, he's been managing to do business there for ages.
yeah. I'm surprised no one's just locked him up or anything, but then you realize he just has a habit of vanishing into thin air when you take your eyes off him. So that's probably why. The fact that he just turns up afterwards and says, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to be a guide in your museum now, and no one's going to question it." So yeah. So yeah, I've just got a couple of little finishing bits to do on the end of that quest line, and then that one's done. So it was fine. It's just a nice little time killer, that one, and you get a decent amount of Stellar Jade out of it. So once I hit the last of the
story-wise, I feel like the main sort of crux of the issue is really the sort of Bronya coming to a reconciliation with the past and how they're going to tell the narrative going forward.
There's also the whole plot line of basically Pela roping people into doing things they don't necessarily want to do.
That's basically what Pella does.
Yeah. Oh, I'm making money! Hooray! All that dye is starting to sell. So, yeah, beyond that, so I'm going to knock over the last couple of those goalposts. I think I've only got like 2 exhibits left to unlock. I do appreciate the fact that one of them is the Galactic Baseballers baseball bat.
Have you done the quest in the Fragmentum where you rescue the girl by pushing boxes around?
I have not. There is a block pushing puzzle.
Yeah, the thing is that takes several days to do because she will appear like every day or two somewhere in the Fragmentum.
Okay.
And you get a little bit more story each time. And it's actually that is actually a side quest that tells the story of one of the previous Supreme Guardians of Belobog, and that intersects with the museum once the museum is completed.
Okay. So her quest line is
there's
probably there somewhere now.
Yeah, because there's an understood history of that Supreme Guardian that is the public history, and then there's what actually happened, which is what you find out through that series of puzzles.
That seems like it's going to be a recurring theme with the Supreme Guardians.
Yeah, well, we haven't really been back to Bellabog in a while. Like the last time was for the Pokemon tournament.
Yeah.
They haven't finished yet. But it looks like the next arc after Penacony is going to be a return to the Shansho Lofu. So it's certainly not out of the question that you'll go back to Duello 6. But Duello 6, basically, there's 3 arcs on Duello 6. There's the primary story one, there's the Trailblaze Continuance, which is important that you do that one because you can get away with doing it after Shansho Lofu, but you definitely can't get away with doing it after Penacony. It just wouldn't make any sense because it introduces a lot of key concepts that are very important going into Penacony.
Right.
But yeah, that's the main storyline. But the Ethereum Wars Pokemon game event also takes place on July 6, which is the third main arc there.
It's a bit silly. I haven't actually got the Trailblaze Continuance unlocked there yet, but I suspect it's like I've left the main story at the point right before the Star Rail actually jumps to the Lofu.
Yeah,
So
I don't know
expect that's gonna
exactly
get
when it
unlocked.
unlocks. It might unlock. It might unlock during Luofu or when you start Luofu or maybe after Luofu, but it definitely has to be done before Penacony because
Right.
you'll be introduced to a lot of key characters.
Yeah, don't want to have that whole plot gap going on.
I don't think that you get introduced directly, but I think even Jade, who's just come out, is mentioned for the first time in that particular quest series.
All right.
Also, you have the opportunity to lick an icy rail and get your tongue stuck to it.
How is that even an option? Like
It is
you just
literally an
gotta do
option. Yeah, you see it, and then you're like, because it plays Trailblazer's thoughts in internal monologue, and it just has you sort of pondering what it might taste like.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah,
it's one of it's one of the sequences that I wish was repeatable because you have a large number of different options as to who to summon for help. And you can't see them all, you can only see one.
Oh no. So yeah. I do appreciate like Trailblazer's inner thoughts tend to be incredibly verbose. But the outer actions are just completely goober.
Well, the thing is that with Trailblazer tends to ponder very deeply things that are very asinine.
Mm-hmm. Such as the Garbage Man Wars, which may or may not actually exist.
Like there's a line of Trailblazer theme merch that gets launched post story on Penacony, and most of it is garbage can or raccoon themed.
Yeah. I did find one fun little segue, which is Trailblazer justifying to themselves, basically providing excuses in their own head as to why it's fine to go through the Supreme Guardian's desk.
But you need to collect more praise of high morals.
Yeah, and that's what you spend it on is on loose justifications. The fact that Bronya just walks in is not even surprised. Just like, oh, what are you doing?
Well, it's a raccoon. It's going to go through the container.
It's just going to rummage, is what it do. And yeah, I know people are going to rummage through that desk. That's why all the important stuff isn't in there. So yeah, that's been a fun time. The only other bit of gaming is I dusted off Fallout 76 and had a quick poke at that, which is fine.
With all the wonderful, deep experiences we have out this week, why did you pick Fallout 76?
Because they just put out a bunch of new content. And I had a bunch of people playing it. So we ran around wearing stupid masks and shot turkeys. I mean, there is a certain degree of satisfaction in donning a giant paper mache Abraham Lincoln head and running around the countryside. Wearing nothing but said head. And a minigun. So yeah.
I don't know, you're sounding awfully Fortnite there.
Yeah, it does kind of dabble into Fortnite territory. But yeah, there is, now that they've kind of really sorted out a lot of the wrinkles in 76, it's just good fun. You can get into some of the deep lore if you really want to, but you don't have to. You can just run around and collect stuff and, blow up mutants or whatever. So yeah. And because I had, that is actually a really good picture.
You have no idea how much I've been messing with the lighting settings here while y'all been talking. I'm listening.
Why does my character look like he needs to poop?
I don't know, I feel like your character's about to be possessed by the ghost of Carmen Miranda any second.
So yeah,
Is that joke too old person?
I think it is. Yes.
Probably. I had to stop and really think.
Oh, we are showing.
It's regionally appropriate.
Actually, I had a family friend pop up the other day who is like only a couple more years old than me. He was basically popped up to say, "Hey, guess what? I'm a grandfather."
Oh dear.
So yeah, if you ever seen a
And
whole
you-
house
you
having an
you
existential
felt-
crisis,
You felt rigor mortis setting in.
oh yeah. We're not Central America or totally not South America. Yeah, but yes. Yes is correct.
Yeah, that's I saw that on my very first day here, and like, yep, we're taking a picture of that one.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, beyond that, it's been Dawntrail. So we'll talk about that later. Vol, what do? You know, I think I might go out and murder some trees and make some money.
Okay. Let's see. Where was I? Mentally, where am I?
At Taco Bell.
Oh,
that's
there we go.
Physically, my character is in Taco Bell. Mentally, I am somewhere else. Let's see. What did I do this week? Okay, so, Blue Archive event for this week was, what's it called? It was actually a New Year's event for JP server, but basically it's an event about Veritas, the hacker club, being forced to go and touch grass because Chihiro, their vice president, their vice president is not so much of a hikikomori. She's a security contractor. She basically takes contracts to go do cybersecurity work for various corporations around Kivotos. So she is sort of a bit of an absentee, much in the way their actual president, Himari, is also an absentee because she's too busy doing silly occult bullcrap in the Arctic. But
as you do.
Veritas themselves, the membership, have become incredibly slovenly because there's no one to force them to go outside, and so they rarely ever leave the club room, even to go home and sleep.
Oh dear.
So they had planned to do an MMO PvP event for the new year, and Chihiro comes back for the new year and is not having any of it, and forces them to go camping so that they can climb a mountain and see the first sunrise. So basically shenanigans ensue. As they all attempt to sneak enough computer equipment to build a data center in the wilderness out there. But
okay.
Yeah, so it's a pretty normal event with a pretty normal resolution, just the same sort of like low key silly story that that forms all of the filler between the very dark chapters of the story that periodically get trotted out. But yeah, so there's nothing in particular to report there. The camping version of Kotama has the most powerful CC in the game, but that's applicable in HOD and only in HOD. So there's not really any reason to roll on her. And the camping version of Hare is a sort of an on-field Himari. She's quite powerful as a buffer, but unless if you've got Himari, you kind of don't need another Himari unless you are a person who is going to be molding on Torment and therefore need a gajillion teams, and all of them need a Himari. So, yeah. not much else to say about that. Don't recall what's happening next in Blue Archive though, so yeah. I'm anticipating the next major story chapter because I think it's going back to Foreclosure Task Force next as like the major story event, and they'll be sort of developing the backstory for what actually happened in Abydos in the past. How did it get to be the way it is? But yeah. So that's that. In Genshin, we had the Farina banner go up, and I accidentally used up all of my luck for the next year and got two Farina.
That was a
I had to lose a 50-50 to Tainari, but when I got Farina, I got two of them, which is great because Farina's constellations are all really powerful. Except for the boring ones that everybody has. But yeah, I don't have enough gear or resources to get her maxed out in a hurry though, so that's going to be a bit of a slower project, especially with my attention somewhat divided over to Dawntrail at the moment. But yeah, working on that. There've been a few events recently in Genshin that I haven't really talked about, but most of them have been fairly unremarkable. There was a sort of a mini RTS one which was kind of weird and awkward because it's really not built for that. Yeah, the most of the recent events have been highly experimental in nature, but they've made it very easy to get the key rewards, and then if you're really into it, you can do other sorts of weird crap to try and get the higher rewards, most of which I don't really care for, because the game modes tend to be very jank, but it's very clear that they're just sort of like toying with mechanics that they could implement in various places in various ways. So there's one where you basically, it's sort of RTS-ish, except you basically just control where you spawn monsters, and then they will do things according to their AI, and you've got to sort of take territory and then try and destroy the enemy base. And then there's another one, which is a sort of a tower defense one, where there are various lanes of monsters that are coming towards you, and you get very limited resources to set up defensive points, because you can't fight directly. You've got to have your monsters and your turrets and your things do it for you. So you've got to carefully position things to get the best coverage against the right elements and that sort of thing. And again, interesting and innovative, but jank. Jank is all heck. The current event is... I hate it. I hated it. It was awful and unpleasant. It was a standard battle event that was basically focused around reactions. So it's like, oh, you've got to use, say, overload to kill all of the enemies within a time limit type of thing. Like, they will keep cycling the different waves until you run out of time, but you've got to get a certain number of kills using the element. But what that means is it's basically a roster check. Like they do supply you with a rental, one of each relevant element, in case you're completely missing, but it's not always a good combination for generating reactions.
Well, even so, you can only have 4 characters on your roster at a time, so it's impossible to get all the reactions.
Well, no, they because they'll each stage will be focused around one reaction in particular.
Oh, okay. They let you shuffle your roster then for each.
Yeah, you pick your roster for the stage. Like, it'll be the overload stage, and you can pick a roster of 4. But if you just don't happen to have, say, a good off-field electro applicator or a good off-field pyro applicator, and the one that they have provided as a rental is not suitable for the role that you have missing. Like, let's say you've got on-field electro, but you've got no off-field pyro, and you can't swap around the other way, and they've supplied you with on-field pyro as the rental, well, you're basically shit out of luck. You're going to have a real hard time doing it. Now, again, they have made the threshold for getting the key Primogem reward really, really low. But overall, the event is really, really frustrating if you try and do anything higher. Because unless you've got a really, really well-developed roster, you might just run short. Like, I had a huge amount of trouble doing the freeze ones because I was basically purely using rentals because I have no built ice. I've got no built cryo characters, and I don't have any built offensive hydro characters. So basically, it was a double rental game, and they weren't really well suited. Like, and I always had to use the rental cryo, and one of them, like, the rental cryo was Charlotte, which meant that I kept accidentally taking photographs of monsters while I was fighting. So Charlotte's the journalist girl, and it just so happens that her R2 attack also takes photographs. So yeah, it was quite frustrating.
Does that mean it like saves screenshots?
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, you go in if you press the button wrong, it seems, and this is what I know from experience rather than because I know how it works on paper. But anytime I press the button wrong, it would just bring up the camera.
I see.
I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I was so frustrated with it that I didn't want to stop and investigate. I just wanted it to be over because it was quite horrible. I mean, she's a catalyst character, so you can use her auto attack as well to apply cryo, but it's not exactly ideal. But yeah, like the theory is that when you hold down the skill, it's supposed to do the same thing Nahida does, except with cryo rather than dendro. Except it just doesn't seem to work sometimes, and you just go into regular camera.
Ah.
I don't know why. I don't remember it being like that the last time that I don't remember it being like that last time that I had Charlotte as a rental character, so maybe it's just was bugged this time, but I had a lot of difficulty with it because it kept accidentally taking photographs for me.
Yeah. You don't want that.
Sorry, I woke up with some respiratory trouble this morning. At any rate, it was just an obnoxious busy work event because you're pretty much, unless you've got a hyper developed roster that allows you to play however you want, you're more or less stuck with doing what they tell you, how they tell you. So yeah, there was that. Story wise, I am totally up to date now on the Archon stories, and have still got a mountain of character stories to do. So I'm sort of gradually working my way through those. So that's pretty much it for Genshin. Star Rail, I have been tooling around with various things. In the end, I decided to pull for Firefly because there were too many secondary characters I wanted on her banner as well, because I wanted to build up Gallagher for use as a solo sustain, and he has really high value E4 and E6, so I kind of wanted those. And also, if I didn't have Firefly, then I kind of needed Shuyi to be the breaker character for when break is necessary, because occasionally there'll be a challenge like in a given week that emphasizes break in some way, and so you kind of need somebody to fill that role. So the easiest way to do that without having a 5-star break specialist like Firefly is to use Shuyi, but Firefly's banner has Shuyi on it, so I figured that I would just pull for Firefly, and in the end I did get Firefly, and I didn't even have to blow all of my Stellar Jade to get it, thank goodness.
Got a bonus.
I got a bonus?
Bonus Bailu.
Oh right, yeah, the Bailu. I lost the 50-50 to Bailu. Fortunately, I lost the 50-50 to Bailu really, really early on, so that was merciful. I don't know what I'm going to do with the Bailu, because Bailu is really good as a solo sustain, provided that debuffs are totally a non-issue, because she's the only abundance character, I think, that has literally no method of dealing with debuffs whatsoever. Like, Lynx is not as good at dealing with debuffs, I don't think. Both Gallagher and Natasha can outright just dispel them, so they are both superior in that respect. But Bailu doesn't. Bailu is just a healing hose. Like Bailu has that same problem that back when we were playing WoW that Holy Priests did, in that they specialized at huge amounts of healing output, but all the content has to be balanced for the healer with the lowest healing output.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that surplus healing power is totally meaningless. So yeah, that's sort of Bailu's problem. Like Bailu's specialty is that she can res her teammates and that she has huge healing output. But the game is balanced around no reses and modest healing output. So yeah, it's just not really worth it. Like Bailu will carry you through the story no problem if you've pulled her early on as like your guaranteed 5-star in the tutorial pool or whatever. Like she will definitely do work for you. But when it comes to doing more complex challenges, she's basically useless because she can't do anything in a debuff situation at all. It just falls apart.
She's my only sustain right now that I built up. Well, built up for a level 40 account.
I mean, it's perfectly serviceable in most in most situations, but there will be key situations where if she's the only one you've got built, it will just drive you up the wall because you'll get debuffed and then bad things will start to happen. The same thing applies to like Aventurine is a premier preservation unit. Like he is the best shielder in the game, bar none. But he only gives debuff resist. It's not guaranteed, which is it fits with his theme since he's a gambler. But if you know that debuffing is going to be the major issue, even though he's the premier preservation unit in the game right now, you can't count on him. So you need to have somebody else built. So yeah, it's you kind of need to have a debuff solution for those situations where debuffs are an issue. Like anytime where the boss for the week in Memory of Chaos or whatever is, let's say it's Kafka, you're going to be dealing with a lot of dominated characters because she's the Dommy Mommy and users dominate, and your characters will attack each other. And if you can't cleanse it, you're going to be in strife. So you kind of need to have a solution for those situations. But yeah. So Firefly, I rush built her crudely to be, just barely good enough. So her traces are still low, but I got sort of like roughly fitting gear on her and roughly fitting planet ornaments and so on, so that I could get her to usable status and try her out. Using Firefly in practical terms was an interesting experience because she hits like a wet noodle most of the time, like really pathetic damage. And then you break the opponent and suddenly everything is 6 figures. So how can I hold all this damage? So she has extremely high highs anytime you've broken the opponent. Like does a ridiculous amount of damage, like absolutely absurd. Makes Acheron look weak by comparison for that particular moment in time. And then when the enemy's toughness bar refills, oh boy, we're back to doing bugger all. So you really need to have a quick and efficient way to deplete toughness and close out the fight in pretty prompt terms. That does make her quite good in trash fights because trash will basically, as soon as its toughness breaks, it's over for them. They don't have a large enough health pool to sustain against the amount of damage that Firefly can put out to a broken target. But she is also a very easy character to build a DPS team around. I think she would come quite highly recommended for new people. While her gear tends to come from later in the game, like her best set comes from the Penacony Grand Theatre, and her best planet ornaments are Calpagni Lantern, which is quite late. You could use any break gear on her, and it would be suitable. If not, maybe not best in slot, but suitable if you had good stats on it. And she doesn't care for crit at all. So all of those pieces that you're looking for crit and crit damage on that have given to other characters, and the ones that are sitting rotting in your inventory because they don't have enough crit stats, like they're all fine with Firefly, because break damage doesn't crit. Break damage is to do with your break stat. It can't crit. So there's no point in building crit on Firefly. There's always those people who insist that crit fly is a build. Crit fly is not a build. Stop building crit fly. But
yeah, I think it tells you like very early on that in the opening tutorial that break damage does not crit.
Yeah. But there are always people who are going to try and do things the unorthodox way, and sometimes that results in developing interesting builds, and sometimes it results in you hitting like a wet noodle. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be one of those wet noodle cases. So yeah, so like her best team is probably Gallagher as the sustain, and Harmony Trailblazer, and Ruan May as supports. If you don't have Ruan May is like her best support by far. But if you don't have Ruan May, you can get by with Pella. Because even though Ruan May is the best one because of her element shred and her ability to increase the rate at which stuff can be depleted. But Pella just has scads of straight up defense shred, and she's a free character. So she's a suitable substitute, much cheaper to build as well than building a 5-star. That's the advantage with 4 stars. If you want to get a team up and running quickly, it's just cheaper to build 4 stars.
Yeah. The 5 stars are good, but damn, they're expensive.
Yeah, like each trace that you want to raise from rank 9 to rank 10 is 300,000 credits. And I think rank 8 to rank 9 is 160,000 credits. So that's nearly 500,000 for 2 ranks, the top 2 ranks, on each of the 3 primary traces. The costing on the basic attack is a little bit lower because it doesn't have as many ranks. But and then there's also the other stat traces besides, and also the 3 major traces as opposed to the skill traces. So yeah, there's a lot of credits go into maximizing the abilities of a particular character. At least it is a sort of a surefire way to improve your character's power. It's similar to building up the talents on Genshin. Like you're improving your multipliers is always going to be a good thing. Even if your gear's a bit mediocre, you're definitely still going to get a bump in power from those. But yeah, so building the Firefly team has it performed really, really effectively with some really jank builds in Divergent Universe, which I also tried out. So Divergent Universe is, well, it's basically a reheated version of Simulated Universe, except with a bunch of stuff has basically just been made better as far as quality of life is concerned. You just have a lot more freedom to do what you want. And it sort of revealed to me just how limited my thinking was before, because in Simulated Universe, you can only use your own characters. And you can only use... Well, when I say you can only use your own characters, that's not what I mean. You can only use your characters as they are in your roster normally, and only so many as you can upload for that stage. And you can add a couple in your roster as you proceed through Simulated Universe, but you're very limited on what you have access to. So you generally want to build a good team or two that can work well with certain blessings, and then just capitalize on that. In Divergent Universe, any character that is not at a suitable level of raw power, they will just buff until it is. All of your characters will be maxed out to what's it called? To level 80, and I think they get about level 8 traces on all traces, and they get given a suitable set of relics. Now, it will not be a perfect build, like the specialized min-maxed builds that people aim towards for their favorite characters are always going to be better, but all of the characters will be placed in a usable state. And in Simulated Universe and Divergent Universe, your combination of blessings will massively outpower your raw stats anyway. You just don't want to have so few hit points that you'll get one shot or things like that. So having your characters boosted is quite useful. So it does allow you to play with characters that you might not otherwise normally use, or ones you haven't built yet, and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm most familiar with the dot team that I usually use for Simulated Universe, but using a single Aeon path in Divergent Universe is sort of not a thing. Because what you are trying to build towards is blessings from usually 2 different paths at a time, and that in combination will unlock a really powerful equation, which is like an equation might require, let's say, 4 nihility blessings and 3 preservation blessings, just as a random example. And so you would want to, if you get that equation, then you're going to be looking for suitable blessings in those. And because in Divergent Universe you can adjust your team composition at any time, you'll be looking to use team members that can exploit the equations that you get. You can rewrite equations, like you can pay a cost to redraw them, but what you get's always going to be random. So it's basically, rather than trying to sculpt what you get around the group of characters you have to use, which is what you do in Simulated Universe, you sculpt your group of characters around the hand that you are dealt by the blessings and equations in Divergent Universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of a different approach, but there's a lot more freedom in terms of team building involved. Like, in Simulated Universe, if you haven't built any freezing characters and you just keep getting fed remembrance blessings, or if you haven't built any follow-up attackers and you just keep getting fed blessings all the time, like me, then you're kind of shit out of luck. But if the same sort of thing happens, like let's say you keep getting fully all the time, which is follow-up and freeze all the time in Divergent Universe, well, you can just build a team that can exploit it. Like, you can just put like March 7th and you could put in Dr. Ratio and other follow-up attackers and so on. Like, you could just build a team, and never mind that you haven't built those characters in the past, they've all been scaled up to where they're useful in Divergent Universe. So you can just try out different team builds to best exploit what resources are given to you. So it's an interesting experience where you get to tool around with characters you don't normally use, and you might find that they're characters that you would like to build in future as well while you're doing it. So yeah. By the end of it, you tend to be pretty outrageously powerful, and once you clear the Divergent Universe, you can save that team for the week in a save slot as, oh, this is this team that completed this run. And then when you want to farm planet ornaments, you can just pick the boss that drops that planet ornament and then slot that team in and fight them.
Convenient.
So it makes farming planet ornaments way more efficient than it was in Simulated Universe. In Simulated Universe, you had to run the whole Simulated Universe every time you wanted to pull ornaments, which basically meant you needed Ryanmate or Acheron or go home because it was going to take too damn long.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can just clear it one time and then start at the boss with a fully built team every time to do your farming. So yeah, I think it's a pretty distinctive improvement. What else? I did the match 3 event. The origami.
You figured out how match 3 works yet?
Roughly, although it's pretty chaotic. I won one tournament because it match makes you with like a bunch of other people, like 7 other people or something, and then you'll do a mini tournament or a round robin where everybody has to play against everybody else type of thing, and then it will rank you at the end. I won one of those. I lost nearly everything else.
Well, it's because you played against Daddy Big Balls or whatever, who's clearly not a 42-year-old wine mom who is the target demographic for those.
Yeah. So that was definitely a thing. I played enough. I did the story, I did the challenges, and then I played the multiplayer enough to get all the Stellar Jade, and I don't think I'll look back because, yeah, it was.
It's done good riddance.
It's this match 3. It's sort of fun sometimes watching the chaos that gets unleashed because you pick a character, right? Like you get origami birds that correspond to, like you get trail birder and you get what's silver wolf, Silbird Wolf, I think it was called. Yeah, they've got several of the major characters have an origami bird, and each of them has, depending on the type of fruit that you focus on, it will have a different special effect. Like
They all have equally
so
terrible names.
Silbird Wolf is like you clear 7 blueberries and it will spawn a universal fruit that will clear all fruit of the same type that you swap its position with. And what else is there? March the 7th one will, when she clears enough of whatever it was, I think strawberries or something, it will create a line explosion at the point that you clear it. And things like that. So they all have a special ability that you want to play around. So yeah, but I don't think it's my thing. I think there's probably generalized strategy that you should go for with match 3, and I don't know what it is. I'm just trying not to embarrass myself too much and get my Stellar Jade and go home.
It's all about setting up combos, and that is a headache.
I can't see them when I look at the screen, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I presume other people can see like potential combos in the making, but I can't. I just don't. I guess I don't lie on the couch drinking wine enough. Yeah. Yeah, so that was an interesting little mini game that they grafted in there for goodness only knows why they felt the need to do that. But Star Rail doesn't want for things to do. There's plenty of little games in that around the place. So yeah, I've more or less done most of the story content now, I think, barring the Pokemon game, which I still haven't gone back and finished because frankly it requires you to learn an entire new game system and it's a lot to take in and it's only relevant for that event. So I haven't gone back to do it yet. But other than that, I think I'm pretty much caught up on the story. I've done most of everything and I'm sort of in the position now where the main goal is to work towards being able to do the more difficult versions of Memory of Chaos, Pure Fiction, and the new boss-centric game mode. So the new boss-centric game mode at this week is more or less a showcase for Firefly teams because it responds really strongly to break. So you want to play the bosses for this one are Cocolia and Argenti, I think. Yes. Argenti is a lot easier than I remember him. Now, he's the one I played Firefly against, and Firefly can absolutely wreck his team. But I remember doing Argenti in the story mode. That was not fun.
Where he just shows up and he's eulogizing at a potted plant.
The fact that characters respond to the spotlights implies that Argenti has the canonical ability to generate spotlights at dramatic moments.
I mean, he is a follower of the beauty. It seems like that's just the sort of thing the beauty would do.
He does seem very fond of that pot plant.
He is incredibly fond of that pot plant.
He becomes a recurring character though, because he's just sort of a sort of a knight errant, right? He just travels around doing stuff. And so he will occasionally just stick his oar in to some situation.
Any less of a nutcase at any point?
Oh, no. In fact, he tends to force himself on more people. Like, he would just join in with the situation. He can be eminently reasonable, though. Like, I just fought him in one situation where you can fight him in the storyline, but apparently you can just pick the option to explain to him instead of being as flamboyant as him and responding to his nightly challenge. You can just explain, oh, actually the situation's kind of rough right now. I don't have time for this, and he'll be like, oh, okay, that's clearly more important. You go ahead then.
Yeah, that first time I've encountered him and he promptly beat my ass. It's like, we're fighting now. Why? Yeah, we're just fighting now.
Yeah, he thrashed me the first time I fought him as well. Absolutely thrashed me. I had just gone up an equilibrium level and I hadn't built any gear or anything.
Likewise.
I got absolutely bollocked. It was awful.
I think that I wonder if they actually deliberately put him there. It's like you're going to have your equilibrium level just raised at this point. So here's a fight to really just wake you up a bit.
I mean, he's not regarded as being specially difficult either. It's just that he always seems to land at the worst time for a new player.
Yeah.
But yeah, he sticks his aura into a lot of situations. He's sort of like Xingqiu, where Xingqiu she's I think the youngest Luofu native that you meet. Like she's like I think she's less than 200 years old, so she's a little kid by comparison to everybody else. She's still by their standards of their society. I mean, she's been around for 200 years nearly. She's a fully grown adult with a job, but she's still childish and is always looking for an opportunity to slack off. But her opportunity to slack off results in her crossing paths with you a lot. So you end up hanging out with Xingqiu a lot. But Argenti is sort of similar because he tends to gravitate towards problems in order to have opportunities to demonstrate his dedication to the beauty. He tends to cross paths with the Traveler a lot, the Trailblazer a lot as well. So yeah, you just run into him all the time, and occasionally he will force his presence on another member of the cast who happens to be nearby. Like, he'll just latch on to somebody and say, "Oh, I admire your cause. I'm going to partner up with you and help you," despite the fact that this help is completely unwanted and unsolicited most of the time. So
I
yeah,
kinda like
he's
the
a
guy, actually. He's like
yeah.
he's so ridiculous.
Yeah, he's a bit of a clown, but he's sort of hard to dislike because his heart's in the right place, and he's actually incredibly effective at what he does.
Yeah.
As you learn when he trounces you.
He is also incredibly flamboyant.
Yeah, well, I mean that's sort of part of the job description, right? I don't think you can be a knight of beauty without being flamboyant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so actually, I did a quest with him in it as well this week. There was one last quest that I had to do, which he ended up showing up as a guest appearance, where Trailblazer basically unilaterally decides that she's going to try being the lobby manager in the Penacony Hotel.
Okay,
And
why?
it's just one of those ideas that sort of pops into Trailblazer's head.
Trailblazer really should not listen to her internal voices.
But yeah, basically, she creates absolute havoc. And I'm not going to spoil it. It's completely ridiculous. But what she ends up managing, the situation she ends up managing to induce. Although it seems like there is an alternate path where you just drink a ton of soda and end up having to run for the bathroom.
It just lock yourself in there for the rest of the sequence.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly what goes on. But each time you drink a soda during that sequence, it gives you an increasingly colourful description about your stomach's protests.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a great time clearing all that content. There's still stuff for me to do, like I've said before. I still have not touched Swarm Disaster. I still have not touched Golden Gears. I don't really have a team build that's perfectly set up for Swarm Disaster. Swarm Disaster can get really messy because my main preservation character, my main sustain for tough battles is Fuxuan, who works in most situations, but is extremely bad in situations where there's lots of AoE. Because she is a cover type character, right? She takes other people's damage and puts it on herself. But in an AoE situation, that basically turns AoE damage into focus fire on her. So
yeah, not good.
It can get kind of rough. But yeah, I have to work on that one. Anyway, as far as things that do not involve Final Fantasy in any way go, that is where I will leave it.
Alrighty.
Righty. I've been running around gathering every type of gatherable that I have access to, fishing everything that I can fish in an attempt to see what sells for the most.
Yep, I've just been sitting here in Taco Bell.
That's not actually Taco Bell. Taco Bell's an outdoor restaurant. Fern got it wrong.
But it's got tacos in it.
It does, but tacos are a local delicacy. But there's Aunt TT's Tacos. That's the Taco Bell.
There's two Taco Bells. Because that's the one you go to for the story.
Yeah, you go. I was thinking of the story one where it's on the other side of the beach.
Mm.
If you zoom in on the map, like to the far right, south of what you makey is Aunt TT's Tacos. It says it in text on the map if you zoom in enough.
Well, there it is. Okay.
Also, I love that the studium name in this is what you makey.
Yes.
The crystalline mean.
Yeah, the what you makey.
Okay.
Incidentally, none of those quests over there are unlocked for me yet.
No, they're not for me either. But Ibu is doing them, so I presume they happen after you.
Yeah, someone will probably tell you to go to what you makey and go makey.
Yeah.
Did Ibu take time off work to play Dawntrail or something? Because I've seen him online like nearly 24/7 since it came out.
He had to work the morning of the day it came out, and then he had to work the morning of today, but he only had 2 half days. Wait, or 2 half days in the time it's been out. Right now, Stardust Shrimp is the winner for.
If you can fish it, yeah.
I can't fish. Fishing is too hard.
Level 91, I can get a new vendor hatchet.
My fisher is level 42.
42? The quickest way to level up fishing is to do the expeditions.
Yeah. Anyway, saving Dawntrail stuff for later. I guess we'll knock out the other big game release that happened this. Well, game I say. I mean DLC.
The cancerous
Expansion.
community.
Yeah. So I don't have good words bouncing in my head to describe most of the people that play FromSoft games. But basically, they're terrible people. They do not have a clue what they actually want from the video game. They can't tell you what they like about it, and all they can do is complain about it or show you some broken cheese build they used to lull and make the game easy.
Yay for cheese.
And that is what you'll get mostly when you talk to people about these games. And that is not the type of play I'm interested in. It's not the type of commentary I care about. And I don't use Twitter, so it's not the type of commentary I'm exposed to very often. But I do know it exists from when I poke my head around. So yeah. Start there. The DLC came out. Now, like I had mentioned on previous weeks, I was fairly certain this DLC was going to be. I actually have notes. You're not supposed to see my notes. They're a mess. They're a mess.
You throw your shame on the screen for all to see.
Okay. So, as usual, we expected Miyazaki to downplay the size of the DLC. He always does this, and sure enough, that's this DLC might as well be. It is massive. The base game has about, I want to say, 10 to 11 regions where you have to go find a map fragment to expand the map. Wow. Maybe more, because there's 4 zones you can't see on top underneath the ground, plus the Halig Tree area, which is not initially revealed on the map. And then you have the basic 5 zones that you can obviously see on the map. So, yeah, the DLC is just absolutely massive. Fish sold so fast. Oh, Tetras are... Do these actually sell?
I'm not sure why would you buy a Tetra, because you can't cook them. They're tiny. Anyway.
Tetras aren't like they're like the filler for a fish tank.
Usually, yeah.
Like you just chuck a handful of Tetras in there to add color.
Little silvery schooling fish, yeah. I assume there are. It's not bad. Spoilers. Everyone complaining about it is.
So the
And
popular
ultimately,
opinion I've seen online is that this is strictly a bad thing. The inability to brutally over-level it to the point where all the challenges trivialized is a complete demerit in favor of a complete demerit relative to the quality of the expansion. Like, the popular opinion is that the whole thing was a terrible idea.
their opinion is wrong. It good. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of them out there, and most of them are pretty bad. There's a few gems out there, but yeah. No, there is not, because you're on top of a mountain. No. Mm. So you just cheese them. Oh. I am a walking fortress. And about as fast. Yeah.
Isn't that in Australia?
Yes. So get some of them gold while you're there. Poop gold. Oh no, that's not water. Huh. Ugh. Considering the walking jars are supposed to be full of the corpses and gizzards of fallen warriors. Ew.
Are they supposed to?
No. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you get that in the base game too. Like all the crypts tend to be very modular. All the mines are very modular. All right, that's good to know. The stuff that matters is all custom build. I mean, pineapples. Yeah. Oh, it goes flippity flippity. Oh no. You are fighting Yoda, in other words. Pretty big. Admit that in the base game, a few of those really big dungeons kind of outstayed their welcome a bit. Mm. Yes. Streets are for peasants. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Oh, hello. I'm collecting pineapples. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm hoping that pineapples are actually going to be worth something, but we'll see. Yeah. Mm. Right. Agreed. Okay. They comes they're self-returning. Ah, yes. That does sound like fun. Especially if you can throw some really big weapons. Yep. Also the perfumer enemies who are really annoying. That sounds kind of ridiculous. Because if it still leaves an elemental splat on the ground, which will tick away, then yeah. That'll work. No. Shotgun raw. You just
Sounds like
have
something from
bear.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh no. Rawr. Oh, that sounds kind of busted, actually. Okay.
You're not allowed to enjoy yourself, Aristotle. You have to go online and write a lengthy post about how terrible the combat is.
Because the internet is usually wrong.
Well, you can see them latching onto narratives in real time as well. Like the one that a few days ago that had risen to popularity was everybody was all started saying, "Oh, the game has Sekiro bosses with Dark Souls combat mechanics." I don't even know what that means, and I don't think most of the people saying it know what it means.
It
But,
doesn't really mean anything, I think.
But they all started saying it at once, sort of thing.
Yeah. Probably because some YouTuber said it. Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Damn. The Fieldcraft level 610 gear on the vendor, I really want that for a more universal glam. It is very, very cool. That's one of the things I really did enjoy about Elden Ring. It's like there's a lip on a building that kind of goes off around a corner, and most games you think, oh, that's just a bit of decoration, but no, Elden Ring, you jump on it and you go for a bit of a walk around the corner and follow it around, and yeah, there'll be something there. Yeah, it might not be anything. Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. She does have the smoothest of brains.
Polished like a bowling ball.
Okay.
Oh, my microphone got muted for that entire segment.
What, in OBS?
Yep.
Why the hell were you doing that?
It was not muted when I tabbed out.
Oh no!
All right, well, we'll recap Elden Ring next week or something.
Really, really quickly.
I'll give you the TLDR. It's good. Twitter's dumb. I'll probably have to pull this show into recording mode and cut that whole segment out. Because it's just going to be me muted. Why is OBS like this?
Because it hates.
Go into the controls and just disable all the hotkeys. You don't need more than one hotkey for OBS, ever. And that's just change scene.
Yeah, oh, I don't even use that. I tab into it. I don't have any hotkeys. I must have bumped the button. It's the only thing that makes sense. I must have been trying to click something next to it and bump the button. Gosh dang it. All right, well, that makes me mad. Okay. Technical difficulty screen going up. I will fix this, folks, and we will be right back.
not Central America or totally not South America. Yeah, but yes. Yes. The quickest way to level up fishing is to do the
stuff for later. 7 region more round, plus the Halig Tree area, which is not initially revealed on the map. That you do these.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, whoops, wrong bait.
Little silvery. Usually, yeah.
Sold so fast.
I'm not sure why would you buy a Tetri because you can't cook them. They're tiny.
Oh, great.
How are you so
Yeah.
bad?
And we're back, folks.
You balked it.
This was a problem of user error. My mic was muted because when I pulled up those notes, I scooted them over to the other monitor, and I must have bumped the button. So for the last 30 minutes, you have not heard me when I was the one that was talking. So my B. So I will recap all that when I give you my next bit of talk about Elden Ring, because I don't want to do that talk again right now. And these two can't really contribute to it. So instead, we're going to move right on into Dawntrail.
Yep. Not as far into it as any of us would like, but we got some first impressions.
Well, you and me have at least made it to the zone split. Vol is still in the capital.
Yes.
Well, I only started this morning. Well, I didn't start this morning. I started about half an hour before the show.
Yeah. yeah. So yeah. Dawntrail. It's a thing.
It is a thing. I am actually enjoying it so far. The plot's fairly simple compared to like all the save the world things we've been doing the last couple.
Well, it's simple for now.
They
For
haven't
now.
had much time to set up. You've got as far as the zone split on, and not just a new expansion, but a new like arc entirely. The entire
Yeah.
myth arc was over last time.
So we're
Yeah.
it's only a matter of time before some big cosmic bugaboo comes out of the woodwork.
Yeah, they're teasing something more here is happening than what's being led on, specifically because they've set Kryl up in the pre-patches. Their
Or
granddad.
turtle.
Our
I
boy the
suspect that's-
slammer over there, the hammerhead.
What is that anyway? It's
Hammerhead crocodile.
it's a kind of a mashup of all sorts of things.
It's called a hammerhead crocodile when you find the normal looking ones.
Right. Well, normal looking for that sort of thing.
I
Get
found
freaky ass thing.
turtle.
Yeah, my fish. Hopefully those turtles are worth something because they need mooching.
Doubtful.
Nah.
A single mooch doesn't increase the value that much. But yeah, so what do you call it? Dawntrail. We have had shoes with the post-game content in Walker. Dawntrail has a lot to prove to make it to make it back into a good spot. And it's going to be tough. They're starting a new X pack. They're starting a new storyline, and they basically have to start from scratch with no opportunity used during the post-Walker content to build it up and get us ready for it.
Yep, we had that very brief 1 hour thing where Kitty Lady shows up and introduces herself, and that's it. That's all she did.
He punched
Polishes her brain to a high shine.
Go punch
Yeah,
toucan.
You go punch a really big toucan. But yeah, the smooth brainness does not ever stop with that one. At least not yet.
It did make me feel rather railroaded. Like, there's literally no reason to believe that this person is a suitable leader for their nation, and yet you're just going to like blithely wander into a fraught political conflict on her behalf. Like, it's just it was, to me, it was a really I felt like it was a strange note to start a story on, because you have zero investment, and yet you're doing something incredibly political fraught that could bring the entire world into a war. Like, why?
Yeah. Mostly because she just shows up and asks.
Not a great reason.
Not
Especially
really a
when
great
she's
reason.
manifestly an idiot.
So yeah, when you get to Tulieltal, or however you pronounce it, that's going to be a recurring thing in this expansion. Is we just cannot pronounce half these names.
Yeah.
But you're really quickly introduced to the other 3 competitors, and none of them are good options.
Well,
You've got.
It's more than none of them are good options right now. This feels like this is getting too much into spoilers because but
This is opening chapters. It's fine, I suppose.
Well, it's
Don't take it upon yourself to decide it's fine to spoil me.
No, we're not going to spoil anything important.
No, I don't think it's worth going into the competitors yet. The
right.
fellow claimants for the throne. That one's a bit since it's related to the main story at all, because there'll be other people that might listen. Want to
All right.
So
It'd be okay if it was just me.
yeah, we can beat up on Vol, but
Yeah, we
he's
ruin
here.
stuff for each other all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, but it's by accident.
Usually.
most of the time it's by accident.
Most of the time. Or in some cases, it's like, no, this is so stupid. You need to not play it, and we're going to ruin it for you now.
No, but we could talk about generalities, but anything specific to the story at all, I want to dodge.
All right. Well, we'll go with class mechanics first then, and the button squish is not as thorough for some classes as I thought it would be.
It's not.
It was non-existent for nearly all classes, in other words.
Yeah.
They've basically made no use of it whatsoever. It was a waste of everyone's time. The only thing that of any note is that they brought back the Mirage Dive one, which is necessary rather than optional.
And
But,
should never been removed in the first place.
yeah, but you know a certain type of person was very upset about it.
Those with the noisy people on Twitter, you mean?
Well, the
They're
noise
the
of people.
people who are spending all their time looking at their pass, which is the thing that really ticked me off. Really, is that the only people that care about that are the people looking at their pass, and the official line from the company is that nobody is looking at a pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a total mess with when it comes to that kind of thing too, with Squeenix and their balancing, because some of it has to be influenced by parsing, and nobody is doing the, oh well, I uploaded to this website and it spat out I uploaded my logs the game naturally produces this website every single time I get in combat or do an attempt on a raid boss, and that's how I figure. No, you all have ACT or the plugin installed, every one of you. And
Yeah.
Squeenix has officially condemned that. So them committing to
Like how many use cases do you think that there are for having Mirage dive and jump on a separate button?
none outside of maybe one or two.
So basically, only people who are passing down to a fraction of a percent are going to even notice, and yet they made a gameplay change on behalf of it.
Yeah, the best.
So they are driving their balancing by passing. End of story.
Yeah, these are the hardest of hardcore people that would be pulling this crap. It just and
Like even simple
But
things like
this
just
was-
putting your 1-2-3 combo on a one button would be nice.
Well, you don't. There's almost no classes where putting the whole 1, 2, 3 would be a good idea. There's like one or two where you can do that, but nearly every class can benefit from at least 1, 2. And
Oh, definitely.
this was their big opportunity to save a lot of controller players from hell, and they didn't. They just chose not to.
yeah, we're gonna have to.
Like, if you're going to make it an option so that you can customize it and turn it off already, why did you stop? Why did you stop there?
Yeah, I don't know.
How many use cases are there for going, like, let's say you're a warrior and you go 1, 2. How many cases are there for going 1, 1?
Yeah. Like Machinist, there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have had overheat, oh not overheat, hypercharge just become your heat blast button.
And what's funny is they realize this is going, specifically the 1, 2, 3 weapon skill thing, with expansion after expansions, adding more and more buttons. Even after reworks, they still only prune the number count a little bit sometimes when they rework a class, unless your name's Summoner.
Yeah.
With the new classes, they are more than happy to sit there if you go and unlock them right now, and basically do the equivalent of rolling the weapon skill basic combo into 1 or 2 buttons.
Yeah, so why not just do that for everyone?
They really heavily implied they were going to.
They did, didn't they?
There is a contingent of people play this game that are hardcore, that's fine, that are at the upper end, and they just, for some godforsaken reason, well, I know why, but they're the loudest people, and they're the people that are making the most noise. The casual player that's content with things is not going to make noise, and they're not going to scrutinize the game as hard as somebody at the hard. Your chance of somebody up at that level being the one that makes noise is fairly understandable. What is less understandable is not realizing that as a developer. And because the casual contingent of players, because we are effectively casual players, even though I play a goodly amount of hours and do collection style content and completion content, and have a couple major achievements under my belt in the game, like Necromancer once and Future and the Baja tools. That's still casual. Like I don't need to parse top tier for any of that except for the behemoth fight.
Well, because that's because the challenges you're interested in require skill. They are not challenges that just require fiddling the numbers at length.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
crit variance in this game,
though.
crit numbers in this game are larger than any kind of gain that you can get through fiddling with your pass. Like, crit variance is enormous. That's why everybody is ticked off at the way crit has been structured in Final Fantasy, which gives lie to the whole thing like, oh, well, we need to have jump and Mirage Drive on a separate button, because everybody knows that crit variance is bigger than that difference. End of story.
Yeah.
But the sort of challenges that you talk about in terms of Bozja, they are very binary. You're either doing it right or you're doing it not right. You're not doing it 99.8% right, and that's bad because you need to reach a 99.9 minimum. That's not how it works. That's not engaging to a normal person.
Yeah, I've had a problem with the Savage content as it's been produced for me in this game. Like the way it's presented, I don't want it.
But it's not the way. It's not about the way the Savage is presented. It's about the way the community has decided Savages to be presented. Because what you're talking about is Week 0 Savage. You're not talking about Savage generally. Savage generally is regarded as something that's very accessible to the mid-core if they're willing to commit to spending time with a group to learn it, or spending enough time to learn the strategy that they can execute it independently in a pug. The really, really toxic approach to Savage is something that only exists in that Week 0 hardcore.
So it's so understand our position when we're talking about this, but I don't think it's meritless at all. I think our position is given next to no attention by the devs at this point when it comes to things like quality of life updates, especially for those of us on controller. You make controller an option, and at this point, you know, after people have spent 100 hours with your game on controller, telling them to switch because you're just going to refuse to stop adding buttons every expansion for 14, 15, 16, 17 classes or whatever. Come on. What's wrong with you?
But this is one of those things where, oh, it's like this everywhere. It's the lower middle class who get dunked on in every situation.
Yeah, because we're not social players, and we're not super casuals that only play, you know, for 2 hours once a week and make a little bit of progress at a time that way. We're not people that sit around idling in Limsa for most of the time. Usually when we're in the game, we're doing something. We're playing your game, and we like variance in our play. And the easiest way to do that is to change classes. But if all your classes have now wound up with too many buttons for controller, well, my options are fairly limited, or I have to go make Yoshi P cry. And if you don't want to cry, Yoshi P, you're going to have to do something about that, or I'm going to have to go get a plug-in. Like, they did make one change, at least, for controller players that has stifled my rage from as much as it could be from them downplaying that button squish. Only a bit, though, because it never should have been a problem in the first place. So you know how when you were setting up your bars on controller and I told you had to switch your active bar to the one you want to edit? Now you can just drag...
I was filled with incandescent rage.
Yes. Now you can just drag crap onto the second bar.
I mean, I was seriously considering switching to controller for this expansion when I was under the impression that they were going to merge a lot of buttons and have them roll over. Now it's just a no-go.
Yeah,
because I basically did not want to learn to use controller with the sheer number of buttons most classes have to put on their controller. It seemed like it was just going to be a pain in the ass, so it wasn't worth it.
So if I do some switching here, I can give you a quick preview on screen. You've got Paladin. Fight or Flight now becomes Goring Blade. Will it be? Paladin has too many defenses as it is outside of like Ultimate. Not even Savage needs all the buttons they have. So I just don't put I don't have Bulwark on my bar. They gave it back to us in Endwalker in the middle of the expansion for now. But I have no reason to put it anywhere. I have no reason to use it.
Well, bosses don't do physical damage most of the time.
Yeah, it's
What
literally...
would you use it on?
Yeah, it just gives me a guaranteed block every attack. That's 15% damage reduction for 10 seconds on physical only. Whoopee. Like,
I mean, it's basically like, you know, tank cooldowns are divided into the two classes, right? Like, you've got your Rampart in one class and you've got your Arm's Length in the other class, right? Like, it's basically an extra Arm's Length.
Yeah. So then we've got...
for trash.
Yeah, and then you've got stuff like Cover. That's a Savage only button, Savage Plus only button. I'll whip it out if I ever decide to do that content, which is getting less and less likely by the day as they continue to show their design philosophy. But And all the other buttons, okay, fine, I can find a spot to cram them, but I don't push most of them. Unless it's trash in dungeons where I'm cycling cooldowns, I just don't hit my buttons, my defensive buttons. I'll push one during the tank buster animation. Maybe. Sometimes you just get Sheltron. Because the healers need something to do. But, and the Paladin basic buttons had no reason to really squish them because there's too few of them as is. If you started squishing Paladin buttons, we could play it all on 4 face buttons if we really wanted to. So, Paladin, okay, you didn't squish that one. Machinist, there was a lot of opportunity for improvement here. It doesn't need it necessarily for controller, but it would have helped a lot. The big one being, why doesn't Hypercharge turn into Heat Blast when Heat Blast cannot be used unless Hypercharge? Why do I have to put Hypercharge in the cooldown section of my bar, which takes a bit longer to hit, and then put Heat Shot in a dead spot on a normal primary button slot? Why is it like this? This is where I've made you cry before, Yoshi P, and once Dalamud comes back, unfortunately, you're going to have to cry again, because you did not do this change. Just let you put auto crossbow somewhere else on the bar, and keep it the way it is now. This is not a hard change. In fact, I guarantee you every single high-level machinist player does this. This was the most blatant example of this should be done.
Yes.
Outside of the 1-2-3 combos, which are, while options, I can understand them wanting the players to at least hit different buttons for that. But there are still, even if you exclude those, so many opportunities for them to button squish did not take. And the biggest example is Hypercharge to Heat Blast.
Yep.
So there's that one on them. They did at least make their new button follow up from Barrel Stabilizer, and it does transform. They're one new button we get this expansion. So there was
that, and Excavator also transforms from Chainsaw.
Yeah. So we got 2. Yeah, well, that's a transformation of Chainsaw. It looks like not a new ability.
Yeah, it upgrades into Excavator.
Yeah, it's a permanent.
I'm not sure how yet, but
it just hit level 96. It's just like when Rage of Helene becomes Royal Authority. It just transforms Chainsaw permanently into Excavator.
Okay.
So yeah, so they're okay.
That's straight upgrade. All right, so that's all right. But it's just like Hyperdrive, Heat Blast, and I would have put Scatter Shot and Auto Crossbow on the same button as well. But that's just me.
Yeah. Okay. Reaper, new class. We're just going down the order I have on my list because Reaper, newish class, so not afflicted by button bloat super heavy yet. I have more than enough space on the bar. However, there are still a lot of opportunities here. Why is Plentiful Harvest not a combo action off of Arcane Circle? Why? You can't use it.
You need to have that extra button.
Yeah, the Arcane Circle, it's not usable unless Arcane Circle is popped. There's no reason for Plentiful Harvest to be a separate button. Why is the return button? They have a really dumb setup for their teleport. Reapers have the forward and the back teleport, and the other button will transform into the go back button.
Really? Let me try
the wrong
this.
one changes.
Oh, that's dumb. Why is it like that?
Yeah, there is no reason for both buttons not to transform into regress once one is used. That would be a nice quality of life feature that they could easily have done.
It didn't.
Yeah, but did not. There is no reason for Communio, your capstone ability at level 90, not to be transformed from Enshroud when Enshroud is used. Because you cannot use Communio unless you are in Enshroud as the Ender for Enshroud. Enshroud will expire before you have the and its cooldown will not be up by the time it naturally wears off its buff. And you won't be able to use Communio anymore.
No other use for Lemur Shroud or anything?
Nope. He's just
introducing any new one or
nope.
or something.
Not that I can see.
Because that's like that's the only excuse that I could see to keep it separate, as if they were going to have an alternate way to spend that, alternate way to end that state.
Yeah, but that has not happened this expansion. So Enshroud happens, and there's no reason for Enshroud not to turn Communio to be your finisher when you're down to your last charge. That's the way it's supposed to work. Okay. Astro, you have, holy crap, what have you done to Astro? But man, you just can't decide on what to do with these cards, and some of these buttons just need to go. A lot of buttons on classes should just go. But Astro is one of the bigger examples of we don't need all these buttons.
You're
That
not
was
grieving
supposed to
for
be-
the loss of Astrodyne?
No. But
No.
we
No?
They were supposed to be doing a big cleanup pass on Astro this time around, weren't they?
yeah, but I still don't have no space for everything on my bar.
Oh.
Keep in mind, as a healer, you have to, or as most classes for that matter, you have to put all or most of your roll actions on the bar as well, and you may have to put consumables on the bar, and you will need sprint on the bar, and you will need sprint in an active location where it's easy to hit, because it is not required. It is still the most useful situational. Oh crap! I need to move button every class has access to, and then you got to put your mouse somewhere because you use it so much. Having to reach over to the mouse is a pain in the butt. Mine's on double tap left trigger up D-pad, but still, it's going to eat a button. Any macros you may have, such as focus target, which I use on healer a lot, so I can see what the boss is casting, also needs its own hotkey because sometimes you have to change focus target. So healers are controller are button economy limited here. Now, to be fair, healers have other problems in that you basically don't have to heal in this game. Not with the current design, not since Shadowbringers onward. Unless something's double warm glowing, there's not enough damage going out for you to even think about the damage that's happening unless it's an ultimate setting where all the heals are effectively pre-planned in advance anyway. So all these Healy buttons, all this Helios and Aspected Helios existing. Why does basic Helios still exist? Nobody will push that button. Why do I have to push Horoscope and then activate it with Aspected Helios? Like, just roll the Horoscope effect into Aspected Helios. GCD kills are so infrequently used anyway. I don't care that Horoscope has a 1 minute cooldown. You probably only push Aspected Helios once a minute anyway. There'd be no reason not to have it. Like, why the heck does Exaltation exist? Why did you give the healers this button that reduces 10% of the damage taken by themselves and another tank? And why is it actually 50% and you just don't tell us? Because it definitely is not 10%.
Has a very large 10%.
Yeah.
Well, it could be 10%, just depends on where that 10% is applied.
Yeah.
Like, I get that you wanted to keep the old flavor of switching sects, switching sects between Nocturnal and Diurnal.
Words are important.
But is Celestial Intercession really necessary for a stupid 400 potency barrier we can do once every 30 seconds on a single target? No, it's not. Like, a bunch of these buttons can just go. And Astro is really tight because now you have, after you've done a little bit of button cleanup, you've given us draw, play 1, play 2, play 3, and play Minor Arcana. We now have 4 play buttons we have to put on the bar somewhere. What's wrong with you?
You have 4 play buttons. I have 6 buttons on my bar that are now question marks with a cross through.
Yeah. So you are now limiting our button economy further. So, okay.
Obviously, what you need is Sinistry.
Now, Astro is not one where you could easily mash the buttons together, but you just need to cut some stuff out or mush effects into one button. Healers don't need all these bonus neutral sect. You've given it a follow-up now that does damage. I think
they've decided to do this weird thing, this expansion where heaps of cooldowns now have a follow-up move.
Yeah,
I don't really know why. But nearly everybody's got one.
I think this is them realizing that there's a problem with button bloat, especially for controller players, and just tacking on new buttons to put on your hotbar every expansion is causing issues, even when they go back and they cut out a few every so often when they do class reworks. Because it's just too much for controller players especially, but players in general to keep track of. You got to remember, people will come into the game as new players, and when if they stick around and start leveling up multiple classes, that's an more and more overwhelming amount of information every time they want to try out a new class. So they must be aware this is a problem. They just have not done anything to address it yet. Dancer has a low button count as it is, but still could benefit a lot from button mushing just to give us even more freedom. Empty button space is fine. We can put macros or consumables or whatever there. They need to get over their fear of there being empty button slots and not having enough buttons. We can make enough buttons if we really want to play well. The option is there for those of us at our level of play. But why is Starfall Dance not a follow-up to Flourish? Why is Fan Dance 4 not a follow-up, or sorry, why is Starfall Dance not a follow-up to Devilment, and why is Fan Dance 4 not a follow-up to Flourish? You have to push both of those buttons before you can push the other one, and before it comes off cooldown, the buff that allows you to use the follow-up move will have worn out. There's no reason not to have those buttons transform. Let's see. There are other buttons do transform. Cascade, Fountain, Windmill, Reverse Cascade, Blood Shower, Rising Windmill, Fountain Vault. These are all just 2 buttons. You have two AoEs and 2 single targets, and they transform as needed. That's good. Saves a whole lot of space. If we would have had to put all those buttons on the bar, we'd have negative space on the bar. Stuff would have to get cut. So why you clearly realize this in Shadowbringers. Ah, goodness gracious me. Even their standard step, like you do that. Not standard step, sorry. Like if I do my little dance here, okay, it doesn't do anything. But if you added Tilana in Endwalker, and I can just do that by having technical step transform into it. You know this is an issue because from this class, your point of class design onwards, that you've been making from Dancer onwards, you do the transforming button thing. A lot of their stuff does transform. It is perfectly acceptable. And not only that, with Dancer, most of it's mandatory. It doesn't have the optional stuff for the buttons that do transform. So there's that. Ninja has seen a quite significant rework with the add of a new gauge, so I'm not actually sure what can be. I don't quite know how
we'll
this
have
works.
To play with Ninja before we know that anything on that front.
I'm a PvP only ninja. Let's see. Summoner is Summoner. You found a good flow with Summoner in terms of button count. There are probably a bit few. This is the only class I think there might be too few buttons on, but it's a fine line to walk, and I'm okay with it as it is now.
Summoner's already got a lot of transformations.
I think that Summoner's problems all lie in the fact that they keep adding more Bahamut's rather than anything else. Like I think that what people want from Summoner is more of a feeling of diversity than more buttons. Like if they just had way more buttons that had different things they could summon on them, rather than we started it off good with 3 primals and Bahamut. Okay, there's a good start. And Phoenix, okay, that's okay, and then Bahamut again. Is like
Knives really? Bahamut.
Yeah, keeping it on the squishing topic. Summoner rework did show they're still aware of the problem though. They didn't put Rekindle, Crimson Cyclone, Mountain Busters, Slipstream, Death Flare, all that on 5 separate buttons. You just have Astral Flow, and depending on which primal you have out, that button transforms into the capstone ability for that primal.
Yes.
So it does a significant, it goes a long way to squishing it, which is great. And furthermore, not only that, but Gem Shine becomes your signature ability with that primal as well. And when you have Bahamut out, Ruin becomes its signature ability that you're going to spam until it runs out. So they did the transforming thing when they reworked Summoner for Endwalker following the trend. They know it's a problem. Warrior, I get away with all the buttons on the bar and have extra space on this one, but
in the case of Warrior, you have no choice. There are no transforming buttons worth a damn.
Yeah,
like this is not a thing. You do not have this option.
Yeah, but its raw number of buttons is higher. So
the thing is, they don't. A lot of them are just not necessary. Like there is no. Thing. Yeah, it's the same as Paladin. Like you are always going to follow Heavy Swing with Maim if you're going to continue a combo. There's no reason to ever double Heavy Swing. If you're going to do Overpower, you're always going to follow it with Mithril Tempest. There's no situation where you overpower twice. I mean, it used to be that you would just go overpower, but we have another button now. Doesn't need to be that way. Like there's just these things. You might as well just compress them because everybody has to behave that way.
Yeah,
it's the same principle as with the Summoner. Like you could have left Ruin in there, but there is literally no reason to press Ruin. Therefore, you can't.
Yeah. So,
Ruin the button you press if you've screwed up your rotation.
Yeah. So they even with if you disregard the weapon skills, Warrior still has room for squish. Why doesn't Enter Release turn into Primal Rend?
Because they want you to have 2 buttons on your bar.
Yeah. Why doesn't Infuriate turn into Nascent Chaos or whatever it is? Or Chaos
because it's too infuriate. because there's 2 Infuriate. You
Okay.
usually have 1 banked at any given point in time.
Yeah. So that's a thing there. Let's see. Is there any other room for squishification? Probably not. But
Well, I have to have Home Gang on my bar twice, which I don't like, and I have to have Nascent Flash on my bar twice, which I don't like.
for
That
the
just
macro,
seems like redundant
yeah.
buttons rather than squishing.
Well, no, the problem
Well,
with
the thing is that Home Gang needs a target, or historically it needed a target,
Mm-hmm.
and so you had to have a macro to make sure it would go off at all.
yeah,
Yes.
especially if you're on trash and whatever trash you pull just gets swapped or it dies first. That's a problem. But now Home Gang has the additional effect that's usually more practical, where you don't have to have a target, and it'll give you the invulnerability, but you have to not target anything to do it. It removes,
Yeah,
and so you need a macro for both scenarios.
yeah. That's basically it's designed in a jank way for no reason they've ever bothered to explain.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not just fix Home Gang?
Yeah, why not just make it invulnerable? I think they already removed the root effect from it.
Like,
Yeah,
the other
they did,
3
long
tanks
time
don't
ago.
have that issue.
When a target is selected, halts their movement with chains is still in the tooltip.
Well, I mean, it doesn't halt you though, like it used to,
Yeah.
Mm.
because it used to freeze you both in place.
Yeah, and there's literally no use case for this. Why does this still exist?
Yeah.
Nothing is vulnerable to having its movement halted, so
Yeah,
And
and
it doesn't matter.
the case of Nation Flash is the same as the case for Intervention on Paladin, not cover. It's a different Intervention applies our Holy Sheltron effect to a friend, and you need to have these twice on the bar if you're main as your main tank, because every tank has a button like that. Because there is the case of you want the ability to freely throw it on anybody, and you need the quick hit when your co-tank is about to get whopped. And so you need a macro for throwing it on position 2 in the party list.
generally speaking, warriors are not big on combos. Like they've got their one major Y-shaped combo, and they've got their 2-part AoE combo, and then that's it. Nothing else leads into anything else. That's just the way it is. They're changing that when they add in Primal Wrath and Primal Ruination, but
yeah,
I mean
so,
they're both new, therefore they both transform.
yeah,
Like all of the new stuff has transformation.
yeah, and it's the same way with Paladin, except we technically got 2 new buttons retroactively added with Atonement, because it used to be really weird feeling with Paladin, because you go 1, 2, 3 with your Royal Authority combo. We don't have a deviating combo. We never have to deviate from the 1, 2, 3. But after the 3, Atonement becomes usable. And Atonement used to be like a 500 or a 440 potency 3 uses we could throw out. That was higher than our basic combo, basically, for 3 hits. They have given us follow-ups to Atonement just so the animation doesn't look as jank, at least, but they also apply the all now scale slightly higher in potency as you go down the list. So you have Atonement, Supplication, and Sepulcher. Not Sepulcher, what's that thing called? Sepulture.
It's pronounced Sepulcher.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'm losing my
You
mind.
had it right the first time. I don't know why you tried to reinterpret it into worse
because
it seems to be a thing Americans like to do.
I think that's more of a me thing, where I have to give everything the wrong name, like Rayquaza Cat.
Well, you didn't call it Scaramouche.
That's true. Well, if it was Scaramouche, it would just be called stuff. But so yeah, they knew putting extra buttons for Paladin would cause issues, because they've got it laid out on controller very comfortable for Paladin right now. You want to know the real reason I've stuck with Paladin? It's the most comfortable on controller. They've hit the perfect balance with it, on as long as you throw away a few defensives that you just don't need. It is
as long as you throw away a few defensives.
I mean, like the defenses you don't need anyway. Like Intervention, I either have the macro or the single or the choose target one on the bar at any given time. I don't keep both. And
Intervention is just Sheltron, right, or something?
Sheltron for your friend, but Sheltron is bigger now because it's Holy Sheltron. It got a billion effects added in Endwalker, where it now, in addition to 15% DR, gives an additional 15% DR for the first half of it, and gives you a 250 potency hot over 12 seconds. So
Does Intervention not?
No, it does. It applies all those effects to a friend, just like Nation Flash applies most of the effects of Bloodwetting to a friend.
Why do they have two separate? You know what? It's probably not worth thinking about.
Yeah. So we're getting in the weeds there, but yeah, okay. Now Dark Knight, even worse scenario. They have cut a few abilities, and I've heard Dark Knights are not very happy with the changes on average. I have not
Well,
looked into
because the
them.
Dark Knights have been on a downhill slump ever since they took them away from being a cast from hit points class. Like the idea of a cast from hit points tank is really cool because you've got to play sort of recklessly and also carefully.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they have just abandoned that and made everything homogenized, and I can sort of understand them being sour about it.
Yeah.
But they've been complaining for a long time about the way their cooldowns work. I just don't think that further homogenization was the ideal way to fix that.
Yeah. I like the
Yeah.
idea of a cast from hit points tank that requires a bit more attention from one of the healers, so that healer is now wasting a few GCDs, but the trade-off is more damage between the two of them to play a bit riskier and have a tank be a little looser with their health. That's a cool
But
idea.
this is the Bailu problem though, right? Like you can't balance around something like that because then you have to balance around that, and then everybody only ever takes Dark Knights.
Yeah, the Dark Knight would be the ideal
to DPS
secondary
checks.
tank if nobody else was changed alongside them.
No, it wouldn't be the ideal secondary tank. It would be the only tank anybody brought. It would be 2 Dark Knights in every group because DPS checks are the way the raid game works.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a thing. Gunbreakers in an okay spot. I have a question mark on my gunbreaker. Oh, that's
Well,
one.
Gunbreaker's new.
Yeah, they're in an okay spot right now. They too have room for it, but even then, they've understood it with Gunbreaker. The same thing we mentioned before about new class design. They have continuation, which just transforms based on whatever ability you use that triggers a follow up. They have a single button for follow up buttons, except for Double Down. There is no reason No Mercy can't turn into Double Down.
Well,
But-
No Mercy turns into Sonic Break.
Oh yeah, that. Oh, does it now? That's gonna make me so happy. Oh, thank goodness. Or, and they have they have removed the damage from their charge. They've done this to a few classes.
Every class except Warrior, because charging was meant to be the Warrior thing.
Paladins, I think, still does damage.
I think maybe they've added Paladins because that one was inspired by intervention.
Yeah,
But they didn't want that. They didn't want every tank to have their dash be part of their DPS combo. So
yeah, I guess because Paladins would also only have 2 off global cooldown buttons to hit if we didn't have our dash. So they wanted
and Warriors are continuing to style on everybody else with their 3 charges.
Yeah, three charges and infinite self healing.
Well, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
right. I got 2 delirium buttons here now. I need to fix that.
So, and then we've got the baby this expansion that got the love that they clearly, they promised and we hoped would come to every class. Eventually. This is not as big a rework as they initially advertised, but it is, most of what it is squishification. When I switch to Dragoon, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons that now have this button will change into something else.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to free up so much space on the bar.
Well, they got rid of Dragon Sight, which is good.
Yep.
I don't need to have Mirage Dive on my bar anymore. Could probably get rid of my second gear Skogul too.
Yep, because Skogul now changes into Nastron, which is lovely. I think that changed that in Endwalker. Actually, I think they kept that one.
But I think that mainly the squish effect on Dragoon has been mental squish.
Yeah.
Although now I don't have a good layout for my buttons anymore because my mental logic for what order to press them in no longer works.
Yeah, it happens.
Because of
happens every
the
time.
breakup between Wheeling Thrust and Fang and Claw.
Yeah, it happens every time I redo my bars for this class. So, okay. That said, Dragoon is probably the worst culprit for useless personal buffs that could be rolled into something else or just taken away. That just drive me nuts, is these type of buttons. One, specifically, Lance Charge, that serves no function other than increasing your damage.
I don't know why it's there. Like, I think it's there in order for there to be a 1 minute damage cooldown. I think that is the reason.
Yeah, like this.
And that's the sort of reason that you arrive at when you have just decided that something has to be the case without there being a reason behind it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's just like, oh well, we decided that we needed to have a 1 minute cooldown on DPS classes. Like, do all the DPS classes have a damage cooldown on 1 minute timer? Is that the reason?
Most of them do. All of them have 2 minutes. Most of them have a baby one at 1 minute.
Yeah, and that's probably why it's there. Why they have the most boring cooldown in the game. But there's no reason that you couldn't have done something interesting with Life Surge instead. Because Life Surge is something that is specific to Dragoons. Only Dragoons have one like that.
Yeah, you could have easily made Life Surge, keep its 2 charges, take it to a 30-second cooldown, roll Lance Charge into it, and make Lance Charge's duration not as long, make it 10 seconds instead afterwards. That could lead to some very interesting decision making.
Can I take True North off my bar?
No, you still got Wheeling Thrust and
why must they do this?
Yeah. I understand positionals have been in the game forever. However, I think as design has gone on and turned more and more into a dance-oriented thing in Final Fantasy, positionals are becoming more of a thing for the planners of Savage Raids to enjoy messing around with, and more of an annoyance for the majority.
Yeah, well, especially when there's so many wall bosses.
Yeah. And especially when the hitboxes become ginormous. This is apparently a recurring issue for the more casual Savage Raiders in Walker. Because the hitboxes were so freaking ginormous, it actually made positionals a huge problem because it took forever to get between the flank and the rear.
Yeah, you've got to either stand in the danger zone at the center of the hitbox, which you can't if there's a single PB AoE, or you've got to run for miles.
Yeah. Monk? Nope. Samurai?
Monk get a pull.
Oh no, I just don't understand Monk at all, so we're not even going to look at that.
They rejiggered Monk as well, so we got to really look at that properly.
I just
they changed meditation into steeled meditation, which does the same thing, except it can transform into things.
Okay.
Yeah, the Riddle of Fire has a follow up now. Okay, I guess Riddle of Fire was kind of a boring buff to begin with, but at least you put its follow up on a transform. Okay, sure. Riddle of Wind did the same thing, also a very boring buff on a 90-second cooldown that transforms into something. Okay. Enlightened Meditation is now how you do Enlightenment. And gives you a ranged pull option, finally, after 7 years. Okay. Six-Sided Star has been totally reworked from what I understand. It's not the same ability it used to be before. It does something different now. I just don't know how Monk operates very well, because every time I've tried to play the class, I hate it. I don't retain any of the information I play from it. Gain from it at all. So, moving on from Monk. Samurai. I have... they got rid of Shoha too! Thank goodness.
Samurai, it's like, this is bloat incarnate. Like,
but the Samurai players are also the biggest crybabies in the world if you touch their class.
So many of these just don't really have any implications. Like, there's no reason for them to be there.
Yeah.
So you don't need to have a separate bar for everything. Like, so you don't. Not everything needs its own button. Some of these are the same ability. You don't need a separate button.
Wait, do I have to put Tsubame Gashi? Okay, so yeah, they have done a bit of weird stuff with Samurai this expansion that I'd have to sit down and figure out. I've not looked at Samurai; it's not a class I play very much. I understand it better than Monk, but if we just go by the old stuff, they have changed quite a bit about Samurai.
Not as much as I've changed about Monk.
Yeah, no, I already don't understand that class on top of everything. Okay, you want the mini weapon skills, lots of buttons character. Okay, fine, you can keep that with that's part of your design for the class and the reason people. Okay, we don't.
Well, the thing is that nearly every ability they've got, like they have about half as many abilities as it looks, because every second ability is just the AoE version of another ability.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a direct one-to-one for so many of their moves in their move library.
Yeah, Shoha and Shoha 2 was the biggest. Why is it called? It was even called Shoha 2.
That's the most egregious example, but the same applies to the others.
Yeah, I know
Like-
what you're talking about. You got like your Senis and your Cians and your Gurren versus your what's the normal version called? Seni.
Gurren and Sene go together, and Q10 and Shinten go together.
Yeah, just AoE is such a non-factor that just give them. Figure the potency if you have to on stuff, but just
AoE is something that has to be managed carefully if you put lots of council bosses in your raid tiers. They don't put council bosses in their raid tiers.
yeah, and the deep dungeon players, if they're playing samurai, already know they're in for a rough ride. It'll be fine. Viper, not going to get into yet. Bard, you have finally made it so that the songs don't pull enemies, so you can target something and keep it rolling. But you do anything. Barrage has a follow-up now, so their one new button is a follow-up. Oh no, they got two brand new buttons. Unless one of them's a transformation. Okay, okay, both of them are transformations, so they got no new buttons. Heartbreaker Shot is just the Bloodletter getting an upgrade, and Radiant Encore is just upgraded Finale. A Radiant Finale. Okay. So you've done effectively nothing to them, but Bard is yet another one with Raging Strikes 2 minutes, Battle Voice 2 minutes, Barrage 2 minutes. You have 3 things in a 2-minute cooldown that are OGCD. Why are these not all one button? If you must make Bard have a 2-minute cooldown button that's 2-minute cooldown window that's that big, why don't you roll these 3 into Radiant Finale?
I don't remember which one Radiant Finale is.
When you have
110? Why is it 110?
I don't know. Oh, because its activate condition is to have all your songs play. You have to.
So you've got 10 seconds to activate a song, like the last song or whatever.
Yeah,
basically this is dumb.
If your songs drift in a boss fight, I think is the reasoning. But again, there's
no reason that you can't staple Raging Strikes to Battle Voice.
And Barrage.
They have the same duration, the same cooldown. Well, I mean, yeah, Barrage is kind of weird. Like, I'm not really sure what the point with Barrage is. Barrage only lasts 10 seconds. The other two, the reason I specify those two specifically is because they're both damage increases, and they both last 20 seconds, and they both have 120-second cooldown. The only difference is that one affects a self, and the other one affects the whole party. You can just staple that self effect onto the rest of the effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for them to be separate because they are identical in the parameters for which they'll be used.
We haven't even touched on the weirdest button Bard has yet. It apparently used to do something. I forget what it was, but Ibus told me about it a few. Why does Sidewinder still exist?
Oh, that's that one that you just kind of press sometimes, isn't it?
It's
not connected to anything. You just do it.
It's a 1-minute cooldown, OGCD, with no bonus effects and mediocre potency at best.
Yeah, I would just split that out and bolt it onto Imperial Arrow.
Yeah, or divide its potency amongst the basic shots. Anything other than have that button there because it does nothing.
It gives you something else to press as an instant.
Once a minute.
Once a minute, yes.
Yeah, that is the most egregious example of
when you're already going to get completely glutted up by spamming Refulgent Arrow when you've got whatchamacallit running.
Yeah.
When you've got Mage's Ballad running and you're furiously trying to use up all the charges.
Because you're trying to get Bloodletters out.
Like, Bloodletter, harder!
Or Heartbreak Shot, I guess is what it'll be called now after it gets upgraded. Okay. So that's Bard. Red Mage.
Bard is a clown fiesta.
Red Mage,
the masterclass in turning buttons into other buttons all the time.
Yeah, and even they have got. Well, actually, they don't really have a lot of room for.
I like the way.
Stuff.
I like the way that it's laid out. I like the way that it's laid out. The only thing that is a bit asinine is riposte Zwischau redoublement. Like, you're always going to say riposte Zwischau redoublement. There's no other scenario. You're not going to riposte.
Yeah, I was experimenting with making Yoshi P cry. If you're looking at my bars down there, by seeing what you could do with it before, because Mage is the one I use for experimentation here. And with the way they're going and what was realistic, really the riposte combo's about it. You could, and the making Yoshi cry allows you, but only Verstone and Verflare on your bar and have them be Jolt otherwise. But that's a bit tank. Normally,
I used to do that using manual macros back before they made it impossible to do without losing heaps of time.
yeah. So I've made Yoshi cry to make that possible right now. But that's a fairly recent, like stupidly recent messing around with it that I've done. Yeah, they're just it's okay as it is. But it's still you clearly understand the problem because this was probably the first inkling there was one. Because every expansion, all you've done is make it longer, make it bigger.
Jolt, Scorch, Resolution.
And Paladin is going this direction. If they made the 1-2-3 combo chain into Atonement, they would have a 6-button basic combo that has no deviation, and they would become the new Red Mage, the Red Mage tank. They're already on the way there with the Confettier combo because it starts with just Confettier when you first get it at level 80, and then at level 90 it gets 3 follow-ups. So you have 3 big sword buttons, and in this expansion they added a 5th button. So they're just Red Mage in us as Paladins. Keep us in button squish territory.
Well, I mean, it's not just that though, right? Because like Jolt, we all know that Jolt will become whatchamacallit, Scorch, and then will become Resolution, right? Yeah. But not only that, but when you accelerate at the start of a combo, Jolt will become Grand Impact instead.
Yeah, so they're aware.
So that button now does 4 different things on one button.
Yeah. So yeah, Black Mage is not as arcane to me as some of the other classes. However, because of its variance at different levels of play, it needs some clean.
They have overhauled the way it works anyway. So
yeah, it's got
because Thunder's a proc now. They don't have sharp cast anymore. They don't have a cast time on Paradox anymore. They've overhauled a lot of stuff. Blizzard no longer works on timer ticks. It works on casts, I think, something like that. Like Umbra Ice is just different now. They've changed a lot of different things about it. Most of them are simplifications, and I think that most of them are probably good simplifications for the purposes of learning the class. They're probably bad simplifications in the context of the people that like to theorycraft Black Mage are all autists of the highest degree.
Yeah. So, I'm okay with 1 or 2 classes having the crazy buttons. They have so many classes to pick from now if you must go that route. To have something for that type of person, but you don't need to do that for everybody. Now, White Mage. Oh boy. White Mage is a similar issue, but without the cards as Astra, and that they have all these healing tools that you just don't need. Do we really need Aquaveil? Do we really need Liturgy of the Bell?
If they really Liturgy of the Bell is one of they're supposed to be their banner moves, and it works really well under certain circumstances, like pulsed AoE damage. It's basically no sells it. Like if they were designing like Liturgy of the Bell is something that it really only sees its value in ultimates. But if they were actually designing their game around healer gameplay, then a lot of these things would be relevant. I don't think that the problem is that healers have too many buttons that are useless. I think the problem is that they design their game without healers in mind, generally.
Yeah, it's like the healers are from a relic of a time when using significantly more heals existed, but I don't know a time when that ever existed.
Well, basically, I played when Binding Coil of Bahamut was a thing. Basically, the phenomenon that you're looking for is identical to down ranking.
Yeah,
like back in Veilstrass, like that was the norm.
Oh yeah,
Veil, the Guild Breaker.
I do not know anything about Scholar at all. As the healer I have played I didn't even play it. I leveled it with Summoner. So you've got
I've played an autismal amount of Scholar in the last expansion, and they have made no changes to the class. The class is absolutely identical to the way it was before.
yeah. So
Zero change. You can hardly tell that it's even an expansion because they've done nothing. They've just done the thing of they've added Baneful Impaction on top of Change Stratagem, which is, dumb and bad. But I mean, it's more or less what I expected. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why should Change Stratagem chain into Baneful Impaction? Like, there's no synergy between those two things. Like, Change Stratagem is an insult of a buff to begin with because it buffs your team's crit. Now, that's fine because the role of the Scholar is to be a battle tactician. But Baneful Impaction is a dot. You have a crit buff that chains into a dot. Think about that for maybe 1 second.
yeah, I don't know. So this thing is
It doesn't make any sense.
Let's,
so
Dots
White
can't
Mage
crit,
have the
can
same
they?
thing. Huh? No, dots can't crit. That's why I said think about it for 1 second.
Okay, yeah. I was making sure I wasn't crazy. Okay.
Yeah, dots
Yeah,
don't
no,
crit.
you're not crazy.
Your crit buff chains into a dot and an AoE dot that you can use once every 2 minutes or whatever it is. Is it 1 minute or 2 minutes? It's 2 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was 2 minutes. So yeah, you get a very weak. Well, it's not very weak. It's just weak. You get a weak AoE dot that you can use every 2 minutes. The graphic had better be gorgeous because I can't think of any other reason why it would exist.
That takes what, five times in 15 seconds for 140 each. So what's 140 times 5? Because that's all that is.
It's a modest amount of damage. It's like White Mage has the same thing. They've got Glare 4 instead.
But there's
which is like that's blast type. So they are just doing that. They are stapling because healers have been asking since forever that if you're going to marginalize our healing gameplay completely by putting so much of the survivability on the tanks, then give us something to do with our DPS rotation. And their idea was to have your group support trigger an extra damage button every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, my goodness, think about it, please. Just try a little bit harder. Come on.
Yeah. Sage is another class where a bunch of its buttons, not as many as you would think, but most of them that are interesting as a healer, they come from transforming when you press the, what's this button called? Ratio button. Instead of having to have a dot and the single target button on their bar, they press your Cracia. Okay. The rest of their
Why do they get so many damage buttons though? That rustles my jimmies.
Yeah, they have Numa Numa Yay. They've got Toxicon 2.
They've got
Phlegma.
Psyche coming as well.
Yeah, they got Phlegma Balls. What else they got?
I would like to think that Phlegma Balls was not in the design doc.
Probably not. But it is a big ball. So yeah. And so they've got the same problems other healers have, and that is the rundown of the basic class changes.
Except that they've got damage abilities to press sometimes.
Yeah, they have a couple more buttons to hit that are not tied to a ridiculous cooldown. Like, well, Numa's got a 2-minute cooldown, but at least
Numa's got a 2 minute, Psyche's got a 1 minute. Like, Toxicon is something that they can charge up over time as sort of a sub game.
Toxicon is the go get a Vuln stack tank, so I have another button to hit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but it's something, right? Like, you could redesign that. Like, it's already managed to get its foot in the door as an ability, so you can do something with it. And of course, Phlegma, as we mentioned, like, they've got stuff to do. Like, they can press buttons that are not just, doses, mushroom. Like,
yeah,
everybody else is just going to braille forever, or whatever it is that you do on other classes.
And you could tell they're the newest healer class because while you look at my bars and you may say they're all full, you got tons of stuff there. Well, I have Eucrasia on there twice, and I've got every single important role action and focus target crammed on there without any issue. And I still have too many healing tools, and the entire right trigger button area is healing tools.
A Scholar is supposed to be built around Ether Pact, but you never press Ether Pact. Like, the entire class is built for Ether Pact. but there's literally no scenario in which it's useful.
That's the one that eats your
It'd
shield?
be like, no, Ether Pact is the one that makes your fairy bond with somebody to keep them alive.
Oh, that's the
That's
Celine
what
take
your
care
whole
of it.
gauge is about.
Okay.
Except there's literally no scenario where you want to forcibly latch your fairy onto the tank because the tank is taking the least damage. And if somebody who's not the tank takes a big block of damage, you need to heal them because the next hit will kill them. You can't hot them up. That's
Yeah.
not a thing. Like Ether Pact is very, very useless in most circumstances. Maybe there are circumstances in Savage or Ultimate where you really want to be able to do that, but for the most part, no. It's about as useful as Physic. It's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, and then there's emergency tactics. For some reason, they're upgrading emergency tactics in this expansion. They like the Seraphism, your new sort of pinnacle cooldown that you can use once every 3 minutes. It upgrades your main spells, Adloquium and Succor, to new versions, like powerful versions, Manifestation and Accession, and it resets the cooldown on emergency tactics. Nobody has ever used emergency tactics. Emergency tactics causes you to no longer create shields.
Which is kind of the opposite of what a scholar does.
Yeah, it turns your shields into overheal. That's what it does. Like you end up pushing a cooldown, and for the next 15 seconds, you're a really, really bad white mage. And that's all it does. So unless they're planning to put raid mechanics in that can just completely ignore and subvert shields, and so you need to do hard healing, or like you have to. The theory was that this was for mechanics where you have to get somebody to 100% HP.
Mm-hmm.
But the only scenario in which you can't do that is if you have 2 relatively incompetent scholars, both of which have no ether flow left.
Yeah.
It's a corner case, and that is what they have built Seraphism to do. Reset the cooldown on that. The thing that is always off cooldown because you never press it.
Yeah. It's
The recast time is only 15 seconds to begin with.
So just why?
It resets your 15-second cooldown on a useless ability so that you can use it again after 1 second. Why?
I do. But yeah.
I'm permanently salty about the state of the scholar class. Like I like it a lot, but it's just it feels like the redheaded stepchild. It really does.
But yeah. No Squeenix employee or anybody that's going to rat me out in a direct email to Squeenix is probably going to listen to this show. But so I'll just straight up say I'm going to use the thing that makes Yeshapi cry. Tired of waiting for them and building their hopes up. I'm just going to commit to it. Life easier as a player. I already have to use the launcher to log in half the time because your basic launcher has problems. So I'll just put it on.
I had to start using the third-party launcher as well, and I used it because if I used the regular launcher, I couldn't connect to the game. I don't know why. I don't know why a third-party launcher would work, but it does, and the base one didn't.
Yep, it's got shoes, so you've already got a huge install base on it, and it's like I am a full controller player in this video game, so. I started playing with controller because I wanted an MMO where I can lean back in my chair. I'm not going to switch to mouse and keyboard, backing on new abilities. Clearly know this is a problem, but unless your 8.0 rework is we're going to take the chainsaw to a bunch of classes and just remove a solid 20 to 30% of their abilities and do some serious button squishification. Because the other issue with controller, right, isn't just that there are too many buttons on something. The problem is like the Dragoon issue they had. On controller, when you are doing a basic set of actions, functionally, the only buttons you can hit and still move comfortably, even with claw gripping, are the 4 face buttons and D-pad right and D-pad up. Anything else is going to get really uncomfortable and make you have to stretch your hand. You have to try to cram everything related to a particular action within those 6 buttons. And so you cannot have things spiral too wildly. And Dragoon is at a point with its combos where it has 1, 2, 3, or it has 1, 5, 6, and both of those have a different ender, and you need both enders used all the time. So you wind up using 7 of those face buttons. And furthermore, on classes that don't do this, but instead only have 3 or 4 of the combat action buttons, the most comfortable button to put your most used OGCD on a class, in this case for Dragoon, it's high jump, would be right D-pad. And this is why we desperately want button squishification more than button reduction as controller players. Because it just is more comfortable to play when you can fit stuff next to each other.
I'm about 80% sure though that their first take on doing class revamps will be just add more skills.
I really hope not. So we do know that the next expansion is going to be all about the class.
Well, that's what Yoshi
Class
P says
revamp.
now. That's 2 years out, my man.
That's 2 years out, though. Yeah, you're right. The obvious question is you know that it's a problem now, so why not just delay the expansion a little bit and do it now?
Well,
because with an MMO content delivery cycle, you simply can't afford to.
Yeah.
They
have to keep a certain cadence.
They had their backup team working on the graphics update and various other things to do with performance this time, and they had said their raid.
They did a great job.
They did.
Those guys did a great job. Like, yeah, it's gorgeous. There are still some issues with it, like the skybox is too low and generates colored light, which is dumb. But by and large, everything looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Except for those poor situations where you've got NPCs in 7.0 which happen to be wearing gear from 2.0. Like those poor bastards.
Yeah. So not all the pieces have been hit quite as hard with the graphics update. And the double die system has not been rolled out for everything yet. That they also had the backup team working on, and they're going to be that's going to be an ongoing project for a while. Is sitting there and going through and making the double die system apply to all classes. So yeah, that's the graphics team is going to be busy on that one for a bit.
Yeah, but they focus really heavily on kind of back end graphical systems.
And it was needed. The game's over a decade and a half old now.
Yeah, they really needed to do it.
Yeah, it was time for that, and that's fine. And they said they're going to be focusing their content and combat design teams on encounter design, which is something that needs working on. The problem is, I think the class refixifying is more important.
Well, I think that you're handicapping your encounter design if your classes are homogenized.
Yeah, because ultimately,
you want us to present a situation where there can be creative solutions to problems, and if everybody only has the same tools, there's no creativity.
Yeah, and this is the big end point of everything when you break it all down. Is
ultimately, any changes to encounter design that happen now are going to have to happen again to take into consideration the changes of the classes.
Yeah, because the thing is that that I'm confused about is that in World of Warcraft, homogenization has gotten out of control before. We were playing through that period, but it got out of control out of a desire to marginalize you must bring this class type logic. Like Ghost Crawler's famous bring the player, not the class. Like homogenization was an accidental byproduct of attempting to stop there being classes that were prized disproportionately above others. In this case, though, in Final Fantasy, they have seen homogenization as a discrete goal to make classes the same. Like, that's really wrong-headed thinking. I don't understand how they fell into that, because it's just not healthy.
Yeah. It in Final Fantasy, more so than any and the super hardcores, if they really want to have more classes leveled, the ones that are doing your week 1 races, which are the only people that are going to cry about things like the relic weapon, is they can go level alternate characters. They're such a small part of your player base, catering to them that hard is dumb. And there's nothing at all wrong with some
Well, the
classes
thing-
being better than others for a little bit, as long as one
The
class
thing
doesn't get
is
the
that-
shaft.
They already operate under that logic because it's always the case, right? Like
Yeah.
with machinists, last expansion, there was a whole bunch of argy-bargy about their damage. I can't remember the specific circumstance because it's not a topic of great interest to me. But they already behave in a way that suggests that the classes are out of balance. So you aren't going to please them.
Yeah.
Like, you've already homogenized everything to hell and back, and they still treat it as though the classes are radically disparate in terms of their power.
Yeah.
So just don't bother. You're wasting your time.
A 2 or 3% damage difference is enough to send them into a tizzy. You're not going to make these people.
Crit variance is bigger than that.
Yeah, and you tried. You went in there and right away you whoops. I don't. You tried. You went in there and you gave the machinist a quick hot fix right after the patch, and you were hoping that would placate them, and it shut them up for a bit. But they are the only people that are happy with classes are right now. Class homogenization and the way you have designed, not even just within the classes of the same role, but all classes around the 2-minute meta, it is just unhealthy because every single class is feeling the same. Even between roles, things are starting to feel the same. Like, the difference between a tank and a DPS is how long your basic combo is. And positionals, and that's it.
I can sort of understand the loosest version of the philosophy that they're working with, but none of that is got the detail to it to sustain a game for any length of time. Like, you need to really, really think about not just class design. Like, that's not going to be enough to solve the problem. You need to think about the overall design philosophy. Like, why is virtually every career healer player incredibly pissed off right now? And it's because their role is redundant.
Yeah.
Like, they simple-mindedly internalize it as, oh well, it's because warriors heal too much or whatever. And yeah, that's the problem. That contributes to the problem. But the real problem is that you haven't given a blind bit of thought to the healer role as executed since Heavensward.
Yeah. It's
Like, the accepted gospel truth in healer circles is that if you have to hardcast a heal, you've made a mistake. Or somebody has made a mistake anyway.
Yeah, and healer was in this game fairly interesting to me when I didn't know what I was doing, and I was still a new Astra, and my GCD heal buttons were, I thought they were necessary. And it still can be fun if you go into roulettes with it and you get somebody that doesn't know what they're doing.
You
But-
mean you go into Auburn Monastery, or you go into Copied Factory, or yeah.
Well, yeah, like, those scenarios are fun, but those scenarios are few, very few, and they furthermore are pug content that you're only going to see that issue happen if you and your friends are goofing around during something and trying out new stuff, or if
To be fair, Circus Tower has been wiping groups left and right.
that's
I'm
Someone
on
was
his
just
bugged
pushing
out.
it with his gigantic hat.
Yeah, Amon is bugged out, and so he can murder groups now. Like, he's just ridiculously powerful.
that's funny.
Like, there's only there are groups that have managed to get past him by, like, bringing the DPS so perfectly that he never gets a chance to use his move that is bugged and kills the entire group. But that's the only way to get past him right now.
Oh goodness. Oh, maybe like dumb cover strats or something.
I'm not sure.
That would be awesome if cover strats were more than the thing for 2-manning content you're not supposed to, man. But yeah, it's funny. But those scenarios are fun for the healers in the game. I think their tools really shine and make the roles shine when those scenarios are presented. But you need to have that kind of situation presented, play and design the class with those situations coming up in mind.
Yeah, well, the thing is that they have designed it such that adequate play from any other class marginalizes healer play. The better people get, the more irrelevant healers become.
Yeah, and
That's the problem, is that as your player base gets better, your healer's skill means less and less. So you can't become better as a healer and eventually the entire role ends up getting washed out. Like it's a design problem. It basically everybody has too much way of interacting with incoming damage. Like incoming damage doesn't present any healer independent challenges for the healer. It's all incoming damage that can be solved by the tank, incoming damage that can be solved by the DPS. You want those mechanics to keep them busy, but you need there to still be mechanics for healers to do. Healers can't just be the janitorial crew when somebody else makes a mistake.
The other problem I've noticed is players are in a. I understand that players are often in the mindset of they don't know what they. And we saw this with Harrowing Hell, a mechanic in the Savage tier for last. But the healers actually had to do something for 30 seconds of the race, and they whined because their parses were too low. But that's a mentality that you've created by not addressing the issue on a fundamental level. They don't know what they want. They're not actually telling you don't make any more Harrowing Hell mechanics. They're telling you there's something so fundamentally wrong with the way you've trained us as healers that we see ourselves as failing our job if we're not outputting damage.
Yeah, there's no reason that they can't go back to the earlier design philosophy. Like, when in Alexander, the healers just get put in jail and they have to do different stuff.
Yeah, there are ways you can engage this, but I think this is going to take a fundamental of the concept of healing in Final Fantasy, especially with the way things are set up now.
Because the healing toolkits are only excessive for the current paradigm.
Yeah.
Like all of those tools, they have their use.
Yeah.
The problem is that they're all attendant to the current paradigm. Okay, so like if I use a token spell that reduces incoming damage by 10%, right? Why is it 10%? Well, it's 10% because this is just supposed to blend in with the regular flow of battle, right? Like if there was a ability that enemies, like big enemies, elite enemies, boss enemies routinely had that required you to intervene to dramatically mitigate something, like, a boss decides, okay, I'm going to just kill this DPS now, and they get nominated for complete obliteration, then the healer, that DPS can't do anything about that. No DPS is equipped to deal with that scenario. So you then create an issue. Well, you need not have protraction, or protraction would be my equivalent because that increases the amount of HP. But you need not have exaltation be so weak, because there's no reason to not make exaltation godlike powerful. Because if you did, let's say it reduced damage by 90%, that's not going to save any tanks' lives because tanks can already do that crap for themselves.
Yeah, there is a problem.
It's not going to make a difference.
Yeah, there is a problem, particularly with Paladin and Warrior tank design. Just self-heal too much. That they have zero reliance on it. It may have been a totally jiggered and theory crafted to death needed to do it, but they did do Omega Ultimate 8 Warriors.
Yeah, well, the thing is that they ran into the same problem though, right? Like it's like you've given warriors too little to do. Well, they have to heal themselves because they have tried to solve the healer problem by putting out heaps of raid wides, and they've tried to solve the tanking problem by giving them cause to manipulate their own health. Like it's not about boss positioning because every boss is a wall, and it's not about mitigation because every tank has the exact same mitigation tools. There's no room for creativity there. You hit either combo 1 or combo 2.
One Paladin,
Like,
you only have one combo.
No, I mean, like, usually you pair cooldowns, right? So you're going to go like Blood-Winning Rampart and Arm's Length, or Blood-Winning
okay.
Vengeance,
You meant
Thrill of Battle.
You meant
or
TR
whatever.
combos.
Like,
okay, I'm on.
Yeah. Those are the only things there's the only interactions with incoming damage that you've got, is these sort of pre-canned sets of reduce the damage that's coming in, and everybody's amounts to the same amount of mitigation for design and counter design reasons. So there's no interaction for tanks with their damage beyond incoming tank buster. React in the only way that's available.
Mm-hmm.
So tank play basically doesn't exist when the boss can't move because it's a wall, and everybody's DR is one button binary response functionally. What's left? Oh well, we need to give them something else to do. So we'll give them the ability to support, and we'll do that by healing. So now the warriors can heal themselves, and they can heal the group, and
Why does the healer exist again?
yeah. So they end up marginalizing healer play.
Yeah.
And the healers haven't been given something else to do, so they just end up sitting there being the glare mage. And it's because they keep playing past the parcel with duties instead of narrowing the scope of each person's duties to something they're hyper specialized at. Because that's what the group is for, right? This is the concept behind cooperation, is that everybody brings a different skill. Not everybody brings the entire same set of skills, and you just need to increase the numbers.
I can still look back at people talking about Final Fantasy. There are memorable boss fights in all of them because of the different class combinations and the different mechanics involved, how that gelled together and created unique experiences and stories. I cannot find a single thing like that for the entirety of all three of your tiers.
No, because the bosses were all generic. They were all very generic. Like you can still generate like moments, like anecdotal moments, but there's no sort of universal thing to tie the player base together. Oh, remember how this boss was in that particular way that required us to pick one of these 3 jank strats that actually work because nobody really had an ideal comp for it.
Yeah,
Like there's none of those things exist.
Yeah, and you write yourself out of the corner case stories of that do get a lot of traction when they happen. Of like, oh, this class was considered so terrible you couldn't bring it for this fight, but we brought one when we were totally out of ideas just on a whim and found this thing that worked. This happened all the time in early World of Warcraft before the player base got skilled up. Like, there were several scenarios where a class that you thought just couldn't do damage accidentally stumbled on a tool that was usable if a player knew how to play it. So it's a mess with class design. But yeah, we spent a lot of time riffing on that and stuff. Let's move on to the setup for the expansion and what they presented us with up to the point of getting to the in terms of the content we have upcoming, the scenario and story they've put out in front of us, and the characters they've introduced. Before we wrap it up, because that's really the last thing aside from the graphical update, which we've talked about, and I've been messing with GPOs, and you've seen me running around enough. It's pretty. I don't think there's anything else we can say about it. It is a.
I think there's a few issues and bugs here and there, like the one I mentioned about the skybox being too low and generating colored light basically means that if you've got any kind of reflective surface, it turns blue when you're outside.
Yeah, and
there's not really any reason for that to be the case. The sky does not generate blue light IRL.
There's a lot of bugs with housing items that previously had like semi-reflective floors with a fake reflect effect on them. Having that reflect effect removed and now it looking like a piece of plastic. And there's a ton of housing items like that apparently that just got nerfed. Water in general looks really good. I like the enhanced wave ripple effect.
Most of the time it looks good. There are a number of scenarios where the water becomes invisible instead of looking good.
Yeah.
Because the transparency is just too high. Like particularly the waters outside Tuliolal here. Like if you have the camera angle right, you can't see the water.
I'm looking at one of those situations right now, and it is over in the Kobold mines.
Yeah, but so
the rest of the zone looks incredible.
So
like it was like that when I was sailing in on the cinematic first arriving in the city. It's like the boat looked like it was literally flying through the air because none of the water was visible.
Yeah, I was distracted by my hair bugging out in that cutscene. My ponytail flipped up vertically and got stuck. I tried to take a screenshot of it, but every time I got in frame, it passed too fast for me to see it. But yeah, so I do like the ripple effect they've added to the water. It feels more pronounced. And the pool goblet water looks really good. I'll stop by there eventually. Show ends. But it is a overall. I really like the graphic change. Now we play female Makode.
It is system hungry. Like if I go stand by the water instead of in the city, it costs me about 60 frames.
Yeah, if from the character model updates alone in this water heavy town, I will. If I go stand near the market board over there, I'm losing. You probably saw my frame dipper.
Speaking of, I did find one interesting bug, and that is when the game tries to run at over 60 FPS. The screen starts tearing.
Yeah, these kind of issues
So-
with a major graphical update are kind of expected, and I expect them to patch a good chunk of them. Maybe the water thing. That
I
seems like
haven't
a
had
thing.
much. I haven't had much tearing, but I experience very slight blurring sometimes when I'm moving at high speed. That it looks kind of like it has a visual appearance, kind of like interlacing
Okay.
from back in the day. That's what I'm getting instead of tearing. I'm not getting actual tearing. I'm getting this
All right.
weird sort of visual buzz.
Weird. Well, thankfully, to fix the tearing issue, there's an option to cap your FPS at 60.
I've had my
And-
FPS capped at 165, I think, for the longest time, simply because I want to keep the volume of my graphics card down. Because if you leave it uncapped, like my graphics card, if I leave it uncapped, it's just going to render. It's going to go hell for leather and render a bajillion frames and
Yes.
heat up like a small sun. Like I need to cap it in order to keep it under control because I don't want to sit here listening to a jet engine.
Brrr.
Mine kicks on the fans. They reach a faintly audible level now whenever I go anywhere with people hitting fun.
And mine is audible all the time. Like it's just
Ooh, wow.
it's controlled audible if I have the frame rate capped at 165. If I uncap it, it's just going to use all of the power the graphics card has at 100% the entire time and render like 300 invisible frames or whatever.
Fish over there suck. I'm coming over here to fish instead.
Anywho, gotta keep moving.
Yep. So, okay. The last bit, content in the expansion. This is a bit of a longer one, but we'll get. And we'll
We don't
get
have
through.
too much on this front because we haven't encountered most of it yet.
Yeah. So this is the last major topic: is the actual area we're in and go into. The new place we're going to be exploring is the new world.
No
It's
more.
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico, South America, ish.
Yeah, something like that. But it's
Kind of all of it in a big old mushy pile.
so okay. The aesthetic of those areas, I'm it's a lot like Chinese aesthetic. It's foreign to me, so I don't really care. But
You live in the south of the United States. Isn't everyone there a Mexican?
yeah, but we don't have aside from Taco Bell, the Mexican culture and a Mexican
don't think-
restaurant you can.
Does
Go
Taco
to-
Bell count as Mexican?
I don't know.
Only in the most offensive cases.
Only on their advertising. But we have Mexican restaurants everywhere. But that's about as far as Mexican influence culturally penetrates, aside from having to know Spanish to talk to everybody. But it's at
What do you
least
need landscaping done, man?
yeah, that's why. but stuff like the architecture and the cultural hangovers that come over from South and Central America, none of that really penetrates here, and it kind of gets stopped by Southern culture being more heavy here. It's going to override it, basically. So I'm okay with the aesthetic, but it's a foreign aesthetic that I can take or leave. Like whenever I see Chinese, heavy Japanese, heavy or architecture like that that's non-Western. Like, okay, that exists. So it's not drawing me with that, but it's not pushing me away either. Where are you guys with us being in South America?
I mean, it's
I
pretty
haven't
cool.
seen any of it
I
yet.
like the aesthetic.
I don't feel like I've seen any of it yet. I feel like I've just gone back to the Raktika Greatwood.
Lahi?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh boy, one of the zones during its nighttime music has some music that'll give Lahi a run for its money.
Oh no.
but in the
On
city,
that
it's just
note-
like it's easy listening jazz all night and big band all day.
I'll take it.
Big band swing. It's
I'll-
better than bwop.
Anything is better than wah, 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 Trombone Hero.
Yes.
I
Who
hate
thought that was a good idea?
I hate the Razahan
thought it was
Trombone Hero
funny.
music.
It was funny
I
the
thought it was
first
it
time.
made me laugh every time I heard it.
I would reach in. I have a hotkey to mute the sound in game, and every time I load up Razahan, before the load screen finished, I'd be like, "Oh right, Trombone Hero," and already be reaching for the.
Incidentally, there's a Trombone Hero cover of One Winged Angel, which is just the greatest thing ever. It's Sephiroth with a trombone slide that's like a mile long. But anyhow,
So yeah,
so I'm glad for that. I'm actually really kind of dig the swing, big band jazziness going on.
I think the
I
feel of
wasn't.
normal battle music is good too for following that
Yeah,
for a bit higher energy. Paul hasn't found that yet, but as soon as he random thing,
yeah, it's all the soundtrack's been good so far. We haven't hit any of the bosses yet, so we haven't got the big grand boss themes yet.
yeah. When it comes to the graphics and appearance of the place, I'm still mostly hyper focused on updates to character models and just the general improvements that are affecting the whole game. So I don't attribute anything specific to the yet.
Go take a look around the various old world areas, and some of them look incredible now.
Yeah, it's definitely gone a long way, especially
Actually,
after.
there's a place I should go check. And let's see. I'm going to go, if I can find it in my list, because I can't remember what it's actually called. Ilmeg. There we go.
Yeah,
I mean, it's certainly nice, and I'm mainly distracted by the fact that I'm very uncertain about the story so far. Like I feel very railroaded at present. Like I
Yeah,
think that if Wiglamart was likable, then I wouldn't have this problem. But the fact is that she's an incompetent spaz, and we're supposed to act like she's some kind of angel. Like,
I could
she's kind of
even
growing on me like a fungus.
I could get behind Wuklamat as our
Ooh,
introduction to come here if they had introduced her a patch or two beforehand instead of
this zone is incredibly fluffy now.
because the zero garbage existing means they didn't have time to set up Dawntrail. If ever there was a time when you really could have used time to set up a story to beef up your next coming story arc and expansion, it was at the end of Endwalker when your main
yeah,
story
the sort of
concluded.
the almost cold open of the Dawntrail saga in just that very last epilogue of Endwalker, it makes the whole Zero saga seem even weirder.
Yeah,
Because it's like this weird tumor in the middle of nowhere.
And there's just no flow to it at all.
and the Zero Saga doesn't feel like it can go anywhere. Like we may go to the 13th at some point, maybe, but
Next expansion or something,
but did
probably
we
down
really
the road.
need 5 patches of preview for it? And that's
And
even
like
if they
half
do
a
it at
patch to
all.
set
Which
up
I,
for Dawntrail.
yeah, like, well, not even half a patch. It's the 0.5.
It's like 2 hours.
Yeah, it's
Well,
the
if they were using it to set up like real far-reaching metaphysical implications for the entire rest of the cosmology going forward, then I could forgive it. But it just seems like it was kind of a chuny hero moment for a character that somebody on the writing team liked.
Me, it was let's milk Final Fantasy IV for every last scrap of content.
it just was not a good time. The Zero story. It just, unless you really
I-
like that character, I don't see how anybody could attach to it.
I would say I was just resoundingly neutral on it.
Yeah,
I think
like,
that
boss fights were
they could have
fine,
done
but
a
that's about it.
they could have done a lot more as well with like, well, why exactly is conjuring horrible Gribblies out of the 13th a specifically culturally Ghanaian thing, and how did that interpenetrate their warrior culture? Like, why is it marginalized? Why, when it was clearly their sort of their saving grace when they came up against magic using races and so on? Like, they just didn't. The problem with Zero is it's not woven into anything. It's
Yeah,
just there
bits.
on its own, sticking out.
Yeah, bits of that are in the Reaper story, but that's not everyone's going to see that.
Well, even then,
Well, I don't think that it is in the Reaper story, though. The Reaper story contains no more or less information about that than, say, that one dungeon where you go to see where they were trained.
Yeah,
it's
so it's not a complete story there.
yeah, and this is all compounded by Endwalker releasing in a totally new area with totally new customs, cultures, ways of doing things, ways their systems operate, its own legends and things that are big and important in the world that we could have spent all those Zero patches building up. Or even just half the patches building up. Like any kind of lead up would have helped with getting the hype interested. Like Trials got her grandpa, and you see the letter in the stinger at the end of the 5.0 main quest before Wuklamot shows up and decides she wants toucan for dinner. Like, and then you're off to the races. And it would give you more time to, if they introduced Wuklamot earlier, for you to get attached to her as a character and understand. They could gauge responses and adjust her writing a bit so that it flows a bit better and the player attaches to her a bit more naturally. She'd feel a bit more a member or pseudo member of the Scions and you could understand why your character would be like, all right, I've been adventuring with you for a little bit. I can go to your hometown and help you out with your.
I'm gonna go check it out.
Yeah,
as it is, he literally just shows up and says, "Hi, I want to be king. Come help me be king."
Hi, you bored? Want to make me king?
Yeah.
Like
the answer is no. I don't want to be involved in a political struggle in another country, backing somebody who appears to be completely incompetent to become the supreme leader. Now, this seems like a terribly risky proposition.
There are.
Who are you? Why should I help you? And why is your brain so smooth?
I can see Vol's character. There are two much more muscle-headed leaning competitors in the competition that your character would likely back instead, but they're not the ones that came over to Eorzea. We got the smooth brain.
I mean, I haven't played any further than arriving, but if I could see backing Wuklamot if her competitors were all truly repugnant individuals, but that would mean that the king was also a pretty bad person, and therefore the entire kingdom has severe problems, and then it would not become about seizing the throne anymore.
Yeah,
but
we could discuss that, but that's spoiling.
They are basically trying to set this up so far as like a shonen tournament.
Yeah, and
largely yes.
And that is the initial setup, and because I have not progressed very far in the story, we're still at the setup phase, where the little tournament is still being acted like it's going to be the main focus of the narrative. But they have also the whole time had Kryle's grandpa's adventures in the Golden City off in the background, and this seems like it'll warp the narrative around it eventually because of how they built it up. But they really, really could have used some time to hype that up. Build up the mystery of what the Golden City is. Give us hints about what might be there. Let us get our brains jogging about it. Get us excited to find out what's there. Like, as you presented it, it's just El Dorado from the real world. That is not interesting by itself. And I'm hoping they correct it in the main story, but they had a golden opportunity to head this off, and they didn't take it.
I think it just feels rushed.
Not even rushed, I don't think is the right word. It's just, I think they did not know.
Abrupt.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just been airdropped in, like Rishi Sunak into his electorate.
Yeah, this is something where they had the opportunity to do something. Plenty of time to start pre-planning the next expansion. And it's almost like they couldn't decide on an idea until they were well into the Endwalker patch.
But the thing is that we know that they write this stuff in advance, like because Yoshi P mentioned that they were going to be writing the script for 8.0 this summer.
Yeah, it's so I think it's just a writing flub that they did not do anything to hype people up for the new expansion and the new area we're going to.
I'm sure that they discussed it, but maybe it's just a failure of execution, and they actually felt like after weighing up the options that doing the cold open was the safer option because of how much baggage people were trying to put down from Endwalker. The real weird part though is that tumor plot that is 0. Like what is this in this? If there was nothing jammed in this space, then it would make more sense. But there is this thing jammed in that space that just doesn't quite fit on either side. It's like trying to put in a puzzle piece that is nearly the right shape, but just isn't.
Yeah. The other way I suppose you could do it would be, if they have to have the cold open, is just have the Warrior of Light and the Scions basically say, we're going over here for a holiday, and then get dragged into things. But as it is,
I mean, that happened in Penacony, and it was not a good time for anybody involved.
No, but at least it made sense.
The writers are like, oh yeah, this is the summer vacation arc because everybody's tired after what happened on the Shanzhou Loifu. So this is going to be a peaceful vacation where nothing bad happens ever.
Yeah, absolutely not.
That was not. I mean, hopefully they can build on this sort of the sort of entering into a voluntary rivalry between two factions within the Scions.
Yeah.
It can,
Like-
based on who we brought over, though, the ones most likely to not just follow the Warrior of Light. As far as I know, they're not here. They were on the boat.
Well, the thing is that Graha is in this opening cinematic, but he's not here. Which means that when he shows up, he's going to show up with a different disposition and information than everybody came to begin with.
Yes.
And they have set up breadcrumbs in the opening cutscene that you'll see shortly, but it could lead to something. The problem is we have so little information on the direction this road is going. We don't need to see the destination. You can keep things hidden from us.
Well,
I don't
see,
want
the
you to
thing
tell
is
us
that
very
this-
much.
The speculation would be fun if it were not for the fact that there's this weird tumor plot line that's in place of where the anticipation building should have happened.
Yeah.
The problem is zero. In the end, the problem is not Dawntrail, the problem is zero. Nobody understands why they bolted that on the end or why it's bolted onto the front of this one. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know if they're intending to make it make sense. If they are, if that's actually going to be really crucial to the plotline of Dawntrail, then I applaud Yoshi P of managing to keep it completely mum all this time.
It's going to come right out of nowhere and no one's going to expect it. But as it is, it's just a big old plot tumor.
And so yeah, I am my faith. The only reason I'm playing the story of this expansion is one, because it's my current MMO and there aren't any other good MMO options on the market for me to money elsewhere. Two, because it's the game I've invested my time in. I have a house here, and three, it's the game all my friends are playing. So I want to make sure that I'm progressing in the game that all my friends are playing, so we can play together.
I feel in a weird way invested in my character's personal story. Like, I sort of want to see what's going to happen to her next, as opposed to an abstract idea of wanting to see the story of the expansion. It's like, well, I've been playing this character now for, since I think I started around when I started there was only Binding Coil of Bahamut, I think. It was way back when. So I've been playing this character a long time. It's always the same character because you don't make alts in this game. You don't change servers and start over. Well, most people don't. Some people do. I can't understand the psychology, but
those people probably also go into like whatever the equivalent of baddragon.com is for Eorzeans.
I don't want to know.
I don't know where you're going with that, and I don't want to know.
I have stumbled upon the Twitter feeds of the people that make alts in this game. They are all degenerates.
Well, see, there's your problem. You went to Twitter.
So yeah.
Twitter needs an
So,
enema. But yeah, I have investment. I have investment in the story on behalf of the character that has been doing these adventures all of this time. But I really feel. I think that the main reason I'm so suspicious is that my confidence in Squeenix was shattered by the poor handling of Endwalker post like 6.0.
Yeah.
Like as right up until you resolve the cosmic crisis is awesome, and after that everything just starts to slop around for no clear reason, and that environment eroded my certainty that they knew what they were doing. And so now all I'm seeing is potential problems, even though all of these things can quite well be tied up.
Yeah, it's I'm giving them this expansion's main story to course correct from the post content and Endwalker and draw me back in. I'm not willing to abandon the game yet. We complain about the things like the class balance and the gameplay and stuff because we do like the game and want to see it succeed. We want to see these problems rectified. We want to see the problems with the writing rectified. It's going, but like when we were talking about WoW, when we get so invested, there's another person here in a pink swimsuit in high heels like I am. Stole my drip. Anyway, we want to see them succeed and do well because we actually enjoy the video game. But
I'm not really sure how to take. I'm not really sure how to take it. But one thing that is just sticking in my mind, like a bit of corn in my teeth or whatever, is when Yoshi P said, "Oh, we'll see if people like the story." Like he doesn't have any confidence people will like the story. On one hand, that's really terrifying And on the other hand, it means that he actually does care and sees that it matters. Because, like, for instance, Neil Cuckman doesn't care if anybody likes Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
Like, that's of no concern to him whatsoever. In fact, he thinks that anybody who doesn't like it is a bad person, like a morally bad person. At least Yoshi P is not thinking like that. He's not making the assumption everybody is guaranteed to like it because we wrote it. But on the other hand, having no confidence that people like it and being prepared to do a total course correct, as he said he was, if they don't, makes me wonder what kind of weird crap are they trying to pull.
Mm-hmm. It is worrying. I concur that too worried me, and I genuinely don't know how to take it. But I've kind of just been trying to pretend he didn't say that, honestly, because it can get your brain swimming in too many works, especially, and with a language barrier in the way on top of that. I don't. It's dangerous to go down that route. That's an easy way to wind up in just being wrong because you're overthinking it. So I've deliberately tried not to think about it because it doesn't sit well with me at all.
I mean, it's not like they haven't been through these travails in the past, though. Like, the writing process for Stormblood was famously a catastrophic mess. But they did pull out of the tailspin in the end because, you know, they were writing Shadowbringers to continue on from Heavensward, and then when they rearranged how things were going to be done, they ended up writing Stormblood to jam into the gap, to be an expansion-sized zero plot arc. And it certainly has some issues, but they did sort of manage to pull it out in the end. Like, the overall shape of the story is smooth and enjoyable enough that all of the rough edges in the middle don't end up mattering all that much by the end of it. Because I played. I don't remember if either of you guys did, but I played through Heavensward into Stormblood without a break. Like, I took a break this time at the end of Endwalker. I did not take a break between Heavensward and Stormblood. And Stormblood got off to a rocky ass start, I tell you what. Nobody knew what to make of it. It just felt really weird. Like it wasn't even part of the same game the whole way through. Especially after, the magnum opus that Heavensward felt like by the end of it. But they made it work in the end. Like, when all was said and done, the whole shape of Stormblood, taking into account the patches that came afterward and so forth, I think it was pretty good. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Overall, I enjoyed it. The transition between... But I think part of that is that the transition between Stormblood and Shadowbringers was incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they spent a whole patch doing the people are crashing. Aether's messing
I
up.
think it was several patches, like, because people dropped one by one, not all like flies at the same time, and they had this sort of this running motif of, and the created this air of uncertainty. Who is going to be next? Why is this happening? We don't know. We can't stop it. We don't know what the cause are. There's no leading in symptoms. It could happen at any moment. Like, they created the right atmosphere to it. Like, this was the opposite of the Zero problem. It was sort of the class act way of doing this introduction.
And yeah, even Endwalker had a whole patch that was the towers are appearing.
I didn't think it was as good. A lot of people have positive feelings about the way that it ended, and I feel like from a execution perspective it was interesting, but from a plotting perspective I felt like it was moving in fits and starts. I don't think it was very smooth, and the sort of the random pan up to the sky at the end while everybody laughs felt incredibly corny and out of place to me. But overall, that was only a few demerit points over a relatively strong execution. I don't think it was as good as the lead into Shadowbringers by a long shot, but it was certainly less stilted than the lead into Dawntrail.
What lead into Dawntrail?
I don't know whether it would be better or worse if I'd played it when it came out.
Yeah.
When that last epilogue chapter came out, because I had just played it last night. and it was like, ugh, I don't like this person. Am I really going to spend a whole expansion with them?
It would have given you time to forget, especially how awkward she is in that. She's at her worst in that cutscene, so that's pretty bad. And she's getting better, and we're still so early in the expansion. I can't tell you if the actress finds her feet with the character and the writing team finds their feet with her, but I really hope it does.
Like I think part of the reason that I react to it is partly because, like I said, one of my motivations for playing it is my investment in my character's personal story, and my character is something of a battle maniac, who their main reason for wanting to come to Tural at all is because they want to fight Mexican Trogdor, and that's basically not on the diagram right now.
They do
Control door.
well. Let's say not in the way you're thinking, but you may get your wish if the story's going where I think it's going. I'm still in speculation, but because I'm still so early, but there may in fact be a Mexican Trogdor to fight at the end. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, my character is just getting dragged along for stuff anyway. So her going with Luke Lamont was probably okay. You know, the backstory for how my character met y'all's is she needed somebody else to open a jar of pickles to figure out which way to twist it.
Anyway, this is we're well over time again.
Yeah, this one was expected to be long because it's the start of a new expansion.
Yeah,
but
we'll have to make a plan about what we're going to spoil as we go on through the weeks.
So,
like, how much time are we going to allow to pass before we talk about any given thing?
So, I think a rough idea to give you guys, the listeners. I don't think next week, we talk if we do need to talk about spoilers. I would assume no spoilers next week as well. We'll give the listeners at least a whole 2 weeks to get going, and then we'll start rolling them out.
I don't know how much playing I'm going to get done anyway. I've got 2 weeks of hard yakka coming up, so
yeah, next week's going to be rough for me too. So we're already, all three of us, going much slower than we usually do with the expansion. So it's this is going to be a dragged out process. So we may be able to just keep up to where Vol's at. We'll see. We will inform you at the start of next show where spoiler talk is at. So okay.
Yeah, we'll figure it out as we go.
All right. I think we'll wrap it there. And if there's any news topics of consequence, we'll probably prioritize those over talking about Dawntrail in the coming weeks until we've all cleared them. And then we can do a super big thoughts and see how they line up with our thoughts on this show. All right. Email topic of the week is Dawntrail. Email topic of the next several months is Dawntrail. So
yes.
Feel free to write us about it to give us. Got anything else that you want to know before I send this out?
I will note that on day 1, I logged in after work, actually, in the middle of the night, and that was about 4 hours after launch, and people were already saying they'd finished the main story.
It is.
Some people have issues.
Yeah, Final Fantasy cutscene heavy game. I could totally see somebody blitzing 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah,
there are people who just skip all the story. I don't know why, but
I mean,
why are you even here?
Why are you here?
There are people in the split zones the first day that were ferrying people to the Aetherites on the side you can't access yet, so they could fly.
Okay.
So it's a playstyle. Also, last comment before we go on. This is actually something positive to say about Dawntrail. This is the smoothest MMO expansion launch I've ever seen in my life.
It has been.
Yeah, my goodness. Yes. Nothing went wrong whatsoever. The queues were only modest at worst. And like last night, I could sign on just like that as soon as it was past peak time.
That expansion to the login server was definitely something that worked out for them.
Normally in an MMO launch, it comes out and even the best laid plans just go up in smoke.
The only place I've experienced any latency has been in Tural at peak time, like during the show. That is not that much.
Yeah, and Walker had a fairly smooth launch as well, but that's nothing compared to what we've got here now.
No, it didn't.
It had issues. It had shoes.
It
crashed a few times.
No, they were awful. It was awful.
Yeah,
it was a total disaster piece.
Yeah,
it was not the worst launch I've ever seen, and they didn't have some of the clownish issues that we had at the launch of Stormblood because Stormblood
Oh
was
yeah, Stormblood was
my.
just a god awful mess.
You could get in. Yeah, it was what happened
Yeah.
after you got in that was the problem.
Yeah, well, like I fully expected every day to have the queue running for 2 hours and be playing Elden Ring on the side. But every day
See,
for the last 2 days, I've been able to log on.
The queue outside the server in Stormblood was not the problem. The problem is that there was a physical queue of people's in-game characters at the first major cinematic event.
Yes.
Like, people formed a literal queue waiting to talk to Raoban. This is an MMO, there's no need to form an actual queue. But we did. All the way down the road and into the next town and into the next zone.
Just because of how that NPC would wig out if multiple people walked to him, wasn't it?
No, it was the only one person could be in the cutscene at a time, and the cutscene was modestly long for like it was like a minute long or 30 seconds long or something, and anybody who talked to him too quickly would just get shunted back to the waiting again. So it was
That
not.
bug. Yeah.
You had to wait your turn and you periodically try and hope that you were okay and that it wouldn't disconnect you while you were at it, and it was very, very silly. They hotfixed it relatively quickly, like by the next day everything was fine, but for that one day it was shenanigans.
Yeah. The by contrast, Dawntrail, everything's been smooth. Practically no added latency that's noticeable. Oh, what?
The only issue I had was that my currency counter was totally bugged out when I logged in, and I had to toggle it to something else and then back again in order to get it to work. Apparently this is a common issue, and also my reshade is wigging out in a variety of ways.
Yeah,
I turned reshade off precisely because of that.
There's a variety of new animation, like new particle effects on animations and that create black boxes around them where the effects from reshade don't apply, much like with the job gauge overlays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't have any idea how to fix it.
I can send you my that solution we talked about briefly in tech. We can try that at some point this weekend. I'll try to figure out where those files are stored. Okay, anyway, but yeah,
Right, man.
it's when I said I've had basically no latency, I got a new gathering effect trigger on that gathering node, where you can just get a second go with the gathering node.
Ooh.
It just after you deplete it completely, it pops back up again with the gathering window again and says you can go again. And I thought it was latency. I was like, of course you do that now. Oh no, it's a brand new gathering effect. Okay.
It's supposed to be doing that.
Yep, this is why you don't spoil yourself, folks. All right. We will see you next week. Sayonara. Bye-bye.